The state's evidence would indicate that beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It is a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. It is a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. It is a dense population of mostly college-related occupants.
Johnny went down into hell one night, he was hunting for the devil's throne. He beat around his name too long, figured he'd claim his own. The flames were licking the cavern walls, the air was thick with sin. But he grinned and tuned his fiddle tight, said, devil, let's begin. He laughed and said, you're foolish, son, you'll burn before you win. But he rousing up that bow and said, we'll see who melts in sin. I ain't afraid of fire or brimstone, you can damn me if I lose, but I'm the best that's ever lived, old boy, so go on, light that fuse. Let's go! Johnny was a hillbilly redneck, meaner than a dog on meth. He said, I beat every fiddle of breathing, ain't none left on earth worth a test. So he loaded up his moonshine and he swore one drunken yell, if the devil's still picking, I'll find his ass, I'm heading straight to hell. And Johnny went down to hell, he wasn't running scared, said, I came to take your fiddle, boy, if you still got one spare. The devil grinned and said, hot damn, I've waited for this day, but I ain't playing country tunes down here, we melt the strings away. So the gate swung wide, the brimstone popped, and demons poured like beer. The devil stood there smiling with a gobo slick and clear. Boy, you talk big for a mortal man, but my fire's burned for years. Johnny spit and grinned, I'll smoke your ass and drink your flaming tears. Johnny went down to hell, he wasn't running scared, said, I came to take your fiddle, boy, if you still got one spare. The devil grinned and said, hot damn, I waited for this day, but I ain't playing country tunes down here, we melt the strings away. The devil drew his bow across, the pit began to roar. The walls of hell were shaking like a diesel engine's core. But Johnny's fire was meaner still, and that fiddle screamed pure sin. He bent the notes till angels cried and the devil's flame grew thin. Smoke rolled up from Johnny's strings, ashes on his boots. He said, hell's just another honky-tonk and I'm the king of roots. The devil dropped that golden bow and kicked it through the flame. Johnny took it, tipped his hat, said, now you know my name. Johnny went down to hell, and he played that fire clean. Left the devil staring, dumbstruck in the glow of gasoline. He said, keep your crown and kingdom, I just came to raise some hell. You'll hear my fiddle ringing from the hollers down in hell.
Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
And eternal pain.
And here we go.
Welcome to the freak show, the best in town.
What is going on, Hive? I hope that everybody is ready for an awesome stream. Chris is backstage. I was chatting with him prior to going live. We are in for a great show. Chris is a legend. If you don't know about his background, he's a former FBI hostage rescue team operator. He's an elite sniper, hostage negotiator, and obviously the author of Broken Plea, the book that has access with never before seen, or that has access to never before seen details of 59,000 files. I am not going to take super long to bring Chris on up to start this conversation. As you're filing in, please, please, please hit that like button, Hive. Share this out to your normie NPC friends. Let them know that we have Chris Whitcomb talking about Broken Plea live in the Hive, answering questions from you all in the chat. If you'd like to scan this QR code after the live concludes, all you got to do is screenshot that and then go into your Photos app, and that will bring up all of the Hive's socials, our TikTok. I would highly recommend you join our Discord as well. In addition to that, if you'd like to join Hive Plus, have access to the emojis, and then I'm going to try at the end of this stream for people that are Hive Plus members to get them to have 10, 15 minutes of questions that they've been asking. If you'd like to be a part of that, the mods will be dropping that link. All of the streams are always going to be free. There's just some extra perks for people that do join Hive Plus. So thank you to everybody who does do that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very, very excited to bring up Mr. Chris Whitcomb. How are you doing today, sir? Oh, hang on. I do that all the time. I had you on mute. How are you doing today?
I was going to say, who are you talking about? Who's this guy? All of a sudden, all that pitch, and here comes this old guy with some guitars in the background.
Hive, how is the volume, Hive? Can you guys hear this all right? And Chris, I know you and I checked backstage. Sometimes it comes through the stream a little bit offset, so let's double check and make sure that everything is sounding okay for everybody in the Hive. And it looks like we are all good. Okay, so Chris, obviously, welcome to the show. If you're not familiar with the Hive is known, or that's what I call my chat. And at any given moment, right, we can pull comments up on the screen. So right here, High Spy said, I pre-ordered my copy last night. Hey, everybody. And whenever there's questions or super chats, I will be pulling them up onto the screen. Don't get distracted by them, as sometimes it is hard not to. Nonetheless, I'd like to give everybody a chance to learn a little bit about you and your background. And I also want to preface, Chris told me backstage not to pull any punches. Okay, so we've seen Chris kind of making his way around the other channels. You're not going to hear the same recycled questions that you've heard on every other channel. We're going to do this the right way. And before we get into the book and the case and those questions, I'd like to hear about your incredible background. And so what was the moment in your FBI HRT days that taught you the most about reading a chaotic crime scene under extreme pressure?
Oh, wow. First of all, I love the show. I'm a big fan of you, and I'm really happy to be here. So thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Right on, right on. Look, I've done a lot of things in life, a lot of different things. And I don't know that my time, the FBI hostage rescue team is not really, you don't roll up on a crime scene per se. They get chaotic, but I would guess if anybody knows about me, they probably check things, and you get known for things over time. And I did that, a movie on Netflix, or a documentary on Netflix called Waco American Apocalypse. And I was one of those guys. For better or worse, that's the reality of it. And and I would say Waco was a crime scene, and when that building burned down, there was nothing I've seen outside of war, and I've been in a lot of those, that was worse than that. So I would say Waco was that was the crime scene. Yeah.
And you've been in over, what, 30 countries, I think I read?
No, I've worked like legitimately in 30 countries. I've been well over 70 countries. I lived in Asia for a long time. I lived in London. I've spent a lot of time in Africa, but I've spent a lot of my adult life in challenging environments outside the United States.
And so how long, you were in the Bureau for how long?
15 years. That's it.
15
yeah,
years.
I didn't retire. I resigned to write books, I sold my first book in a card game at the Mercer Hotel in New York City with Brad Pitt. And it was like my life changed that night. It was bizarre, but that's kind of the way my life rolls. It's just been one. There's no path to it. It just things happen.
What'd you bet if he lost the hand, he had to buy your book, or how did?
All right, so funny story. I mean, this is fantastic, right? We'll talk about other things, but I've lived a crazy life prior to this, and I've written about a lot of it. But I had somehow, because of the way my life works. So I had this job. Most people don't know that much about the hostage rescue team, but prior to 9/11, we did most of the foreign. We did a lot of classified stuff. We did a lot of stuff in the war on terror because of a law called the Posse Comitatus, which prohibited the military from working in civilian law enforcement. Prior to 9/11, terrorism was considered law enforcement, and we were the function of the DOJ. So a lot of CIA, worked with Delta, worked with SEAL Team 6, but very often they would go with us. After 9/11, it went the other way around. They took over. They have a specific war-fighting capability, but it was all terrorism. So I spent a lot of those years in foreign environments. And then once I left the FBI on 9/11, ironically, I had a legitimate cover working in media. So I was a masthead writer for GQ magazine because of my books. I had an op-ed contract at the New York Times, and I worked on air at NBC, MSNBC, and CNBC. I had a show on CNBC with Martha McCallum, who's now at Fox. So a lot of, people would say, well, that's all over the place. And it is. I mean, I was a newspaper reporter. I taught high school English, but a lot of different things. The FBI was a time in my life that I'm very proud of, that's very important to me. It's very dear to me, but it was a time in my life, not my life.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for walking us through that. And you've written a handful of other books that seem to be rather like they're more personal, right? So what made you feel like writing about the Idaho 4 case, or I guess what made you think to yourself, the Idaho 4 case needs my voice and my writing right now?
Sitting here right now, I'm not sure that I feel that in this moment. I don't know that I really. Let me back up. I've written two memoirs, 3 novels, and I wrote a memoir that came out last summer, and I was looking for the next thing to do. I've got a great book agent, and he called up and he said, well, why don't you try true crime? And I thought, all right, I'll give it a try. Mm-hmm. And there's a famous missing persons case in Springfield, Missouri called the Springfield 3. 3 missing women from 1992 disappeared, no trace. So I said, all right. And I got hooked up with Dylan McDermott, the actor Dylan McDermott. Really remarkable guy, great guy. So I was working on that book, and I had a buddy, an FBI agent, retired buddy, and he came over. We were having coffee, and he said, what are you working on? And we were talking about that. And I said, what are you working on? And because he was doing cold cases at the time, and he told me about this 4 horrific murders in Idaho that had occurred, and they arrested a guy named Bryan Kohberger, and he was working on that case. He was working peripherally on that case. So I completely ignored it. I was buried with the 2 years of these 2 books that I had written. But we had a follow-on conversation, and he said, look, I know you're busy, but I got a couple questions. Maybe you could help me out with them. And he started showing me elements of the file to which he had exposure. Okay. Looking at it, saying, what is this? How does this make sense? And the more I looked, the more I realized that it was one of the most compelling things I'd ever looked at or had anything to do with. But my initial reaction was, look, they arrested this guy. He's going to trial. I'm sure the prosecution has it wrapped up. What could I possibly have in terms of interest in following this case when I was just thinking what's next? I was very, very busy, what it boils down to. However, he persisted. I saw more. And the more I saw, the more interested I got. Then the more involved I got. And here we are. That's how it came about. No interest in this prior to the book. Okay. What do you mean that he was working on it peripherally? What does that mean if an FBI agent? So the way a prosecution works, and many of your viewers will know this, a crime occurs, the police come in, they investigate the crime. They gather information, they hand it to a prosecutor. In my case, an assistant United States attorney when I was in the FBI. In this case, a district attorney or county prosecutor. And then all the information gathered has to be given, once a person's charged, has to be given to the defense under a Brady disclosure, which is a Supreme Court case, Brady v. Maryland, I think 1974. It's a very old decision, meaning that the defense gets all the information. In this case, it is a staggering amount of information. And then because defense attorneys are attorneys, they have to hire people to interpret. They have to hire forensic pathologists. They have to hire blood spatter experts. They have to hire behavioralists. They have to hire all of the people to make sense of this information so a defense team can formulate a defense for their client. Make sense? You need all those experts. So the experts get hired. The experts have people that they work with and hire out. And he was at some point part of that chain.
Okay, I see. And so then, is that one of the people that allowed you the access to the 59,000 case files and over the 200,000 exhibits that you mentioned in the beginning of your book?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that I learned from your book is that authors or internet sleuths, they're not under that same overarching gag order that you'd see in a court of law. I did not know that prior to reading your book.
Yeah, that's right.
And so
let's make sense of this. Let's take every one of these issues because nobody's asked these things, and I think they're very important. People ask about information and how you get it, and I would say that in the United States we have a Constitution, and we have amendments within the Constitution. The first is the Bill of Rights. Within the Bill of Rights, the first is freedom of speech, which has been extended historically to media. And we could look at things like Watergate. Watergate started with a leak and a disclosure of files, right?
Yep.
But it's going on right now. You could turn on television right now in this moment, and people will be leaking things about Trump or about Kash Patel or about Hegseth, whatever. It's the world in which we live.
Yep.
In this case, Judge Hippler imposed a gag order, meaning that the prosecution and the defense were prohibited from mentioning the information they had, the evidence they had, because of issues protecting Bryan Kohberger's rights. You with me so far?
Yes. And I think also Meghan Marshall came in and also put a sweeping gag order as well, right off the jump.
Yeah, there have been various gag orders, motions, rulings. The criminal process is complex and it's played out in public. So many of your viewers have followed the process itself.
Right.
Not just the case, but the process itself. So the first thing that happened is someone leaked to Dateline NBC video and other information, which became a big 2-hour special. I think everybody remembers that.
Yeah.
Right? When that happened, Judge Hippler, rightfully so, became displeased and went after the source of the leak. You can't do that in the federal government because you could be a whistleblower. So if somebody comes forward and leaks something about the Trump administration, the Biden, whatever in a public sector, there are protections because somebody coming forward and giving information about something they have concerns with is protected under certain rules. In the private sector, something like this, the judge never went after 2020 because journalists can publish, print, write about, and work with information as long as it's not classified. If I, as an FBI agent, used information that was classified, and I've been through this in 6 books, right? I wrote 2 memoirs about some really crazy stuff, and I know the difference, right? So within journalism, meaning podcasts, radio, television, internet, whatever the case may be, many times people will disclose information because they have legal access to it, meaning a person doesn't break into somebody's house and steal documents from them, right?
Okay.
And there are copyright protections as well. If you write a letter to me, I cannot print that letter because you have a copyright to that letter. And in this case, there are many personal communications that I couldn't use, not because they're protected by law, but protected by civil copyright. You have the same thing. If somebody just knocks you off, you have a copyright protection for the show. You with me?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm totally.
So what I'm trying to do is explain to people how stories end up in the New York Times, how books get written. There are protections, but they may not be exactly what you think they are. So in this particular case, and let's get this out right up front, I quote Dr. Brent Turvey as a defense expert, and I interviewed him for the book, and I've talked to him a great deal since then, and he is now talking to other people. He might come on your show. I know he's doing some of the other podcasts. He was in a Fox News article that was written today. He's a brilliant man. He's a brilliant guy, extraordinarily accomplished and experienced, but this guy is no nonsense. And he said right up front, he looked at me and he said, listen, I will talk to you about various things. I didn't know him at the time. And he said he had a non-disclosure agreement. He had certain protections. He's a professional, and he wouldn't go near those things with a 10-foot pole. However, other people that felt very strongly about things that happened after the plea agreement did feed me documents and information, much of which is now public. Much of it, you have photographs that we're going to talk about. Some of that came before it was public, some after it was public. But that's how the information gathering for this specific book happened. Do you have any more specific questions about that? Maybe I wasn't clear.
No, that makes total sense. And like I said, I did not know that until reading your book that the gag order didn't apply. And it actually segues into my next question, which I've summed this case up in the sense of Bryan Kohberger, lone wolf actor, no connection to the victims, small college town, stabbing, right? My question is, that seems rather straightforward in the narrative, like what we've been told.
Yes.
If we were to just look at, for example, the court case summary and all of the redactions, the references to national security gag orders, how does a local small town stabbing escalate so quickly? That's always confused me. And I'm not sure if you have any insight as to why that is, because there's plenty of murders that happen every weekend throughout the United States, throughout the world. And those cases are ongoing and they're straightforward.
Right. So two things. First of all, let me just say, because I'm just trying to be very, very specific and clear. You have some very knowledgeable viewers. All of them have opinions. Some are, whatever. I want to be very clear. First of all, I never wrote anything, disclosed anything, even looked at anything per se, while Judge Hippler had a gag order on the evidence relevant to this trial. But then Bryan Kohberger pled guilty. I never wrote a word about this until Bryan Kohberger pled guilty. Okay. Once that happened, the gag order per se was lifted, even though there were certain exclusions. And then it became a question of what will police release at their own discretion. So you could file a Freedom of Information Act, as has People Magazine and Fox News and podcasters, and you could apply for access to that because it's taxpayer-funded information, and you have a right to get it. So they will give that to, they being the law enforcement agency, will disseminate that based on things like not disclosing people's names and addresses and phone numbers. So is that clear? That even if the gag order did not apply to me as a writer, I never did anything that violated any gag order, even though it didn't specifically apply to me. It was after that. Then it becomes the question of what can you disclose, what's public and what's private, and that's a different matter. So is that clear?
Yep, it's absolutely clear.
Okay, cool. So the next thing is this. Why this case? And the answer is, I have no clue. This thing was already a huge sensation before I ever even heard of it. I just wasn't watching.
Can I pause right there? Do you think that the 8-hour gap poured gas on the fire for the sensation? Because I know a lot of people in here, and I'll just ask the Hive a quick poll. Type of 1, if the 8-hour delay in the 911 call is what perked your ears up. And I would type a 1. That really did catch my attention. Like, wait, one of the roommate or two of the roommates, we didn't know much, right? They waited 8 hours. That was a big, I would say that, like I said, that's pouring gas on the fire. Did you feel that same way at all once you kind of learned more about it?
Well, yeah, I'd give you a 1 initially. I might give you a 1++ down the line. And look, we're going to talk about that. But my answers might not be what you expect. But I have a lot of information that nobody's discussed, and I want to get to it. But that's not what drew me to the case. That's not. Did it raise my eyebrows? Absolutely. Like, how does that happen? That I looked at this thing. Look, I've got a journalist side, print, broadcast media, and I've got the FBI training. I worked as an investigative agent before I went to the hostage rescue team. Then I worked in the unit, the critical incident response group, which is the profilers and people that we'll talk about later. So I had all these angles on it. What piqued my attention was information I saw in the file that raised massive concerns about the narrative that we knew based on Bryan Kohberger's plea. And we'll talk about it. So I do want to spend time talking about the delay, about talking to witnesses and talking about that. But I think we need to clear some things before we get there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You're the boss, but I think it's going to be clearer. It's going to be much clearer if we get to that, not lead with it.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. So let's start with this. So Hive, just so you all know, I have some photos and slides prepared that I'm going to be sharing the screen. And obviously, Chris, you did a good job at putting the contradictions and any cracks in the narrative. on paper, right? And there's some uncomfortable truths in those first few pages that I'm sure a lot of people, if they have had a chance to read your book already, their jaws on the floor where they're like, whoa, okay, wow, we're actually getting some access to some things that we did not know prior. One of them is that
a few things.
Yeah, exactly.
And a few things.
The beginning of the book really does draw you in right away. And I think anybody that follows this case that's read it would agree with that. Now, your book, it calls out that the sheath was found on the floor, not the bed, and that large parts of the house looked sanitized. And so you in the book kind of walk us through the prosecution's own expert saying that the scene was altered. I have a photo of the sheath here, or I have some photos. Let me just go ahead and make this full screen for us here. So obviously this is Kaylee and Maddie's room up on the 3rd floor, right? I have the photos of the sheath. We can see some of the blood spatter here. The sheets have already been removed at this point, and you can see that the sheets look relatively not bloody. Like you can kind of see the comforter here, there. But what I want to focus on is the sheath. Backstage, I was telling you, this sheath seems like it should have had a ton more blood on it. And it would make sense that if it was on the floor that it didn't.
Okay. Bertie, I love you, man. I think you're a huge talent and I love your show. I'm going to suggest that we get to specifics leading up to this because there's so many things wrong with this picture. I don't even know where to start.
Okay.
And you've mentioned one of the very important ones, but we got to say this, okay?
Okay.
I never said in the book that the thing was found on the floor. In the book, I quote a law enforcement person saying it was found on the floor. And I'll say this. Those of you that have read the book, it is a very, I wrote this book as if I were writing a presentation to a prosecutor for a grand jury investigation. I use primary source documents throughout the book. I make no theories or suppositions, and I make no claims about these things intentionally because I think you do this already, but I think a lot of people now in the true crime community can take a leap forward by saying, all right, we know there are issues. We want to know the facts, and we want to chase those facts to come up with deliberate, well thought out, well-intentioned truths.
Yeah,
right.
I would agree with that.
And that would lead to justice. And I'll say justice is the domain of lawyers and courts. That's the way we live in the American system of justice. However, we're all potential jurors, and we all can look at these things and we can make up our minds. We know about so many wrongful convictions. We know about so many people that got away with murder. We know about all these things. My thinking is let's look at the facts and let's see what is wrong with this case. In this particular case, my inquiry, that initial inquiry, led to a point where I felt compelled to do something about it, right? I could have written books about any number of subjects, not true crime or otherwise. I felt compelled to do that based on the information. So let's go back to this bedroom, okay? There are so many different ways we could look at this house because there are so many elements of this. So let's start with a knife sheath where we go back to the beginning, which is the end. We go back to Judge Hippler's courtroom in July where he asks the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, to stand up and recite the facts of the case that would have been presented at trial against Bryan Kohberger. You with me?
Yep.
I'm not saying what I think about it. I'm saying let's look at what Bill Thompson said in that hearing, and everybody can go back and listen to this. I want you to verify everything that I'm saying. He said basically it's a three-part prosecution, three pillars of the prosecution. The DNA in the knife sheath, which is where we're going, the cell phone tower pings, and the white car. Kohberger coming and going. You with me? Okay, we'll leave those alone for right now because the big one is DNA on what I'm looking at in that photograph. So the very first thing to know about these photographs is, yes, it is the third floor bedroom occupied by Kaylee Galvez and Maddie Mogan. That's where they were killed in that bed, right? So let's start with the photograph from the left and move through this thing, get into the sheath. That photograph, right? That is going to be very, very important as we talk about the crime scene, the book, the narrative, everything that we do moving forward. And I'll say this, blood is a viscous fluid. When it is shed by a human being and cast on a flat surface, it is a blueprint for what happened, right? That blood was not wiped by somebody's hand showing fingerprints. It was sprayed that way. It hit the wall, gravity interacted, and it fell down. That's very important where we're going to go. You look at the bed, and I can say this is important because that bed is does not have the comforter. It doesn't have either of the victims. It doesn't have the pillows. This is after the fact. All right. And this is going to address your question. The photo behind what you and I are covering up, same thing. And then the lower left corner, all of a sudden, this is a foundation of what we talk about in the book and what you ask in this question. And I will say this, that knife sheath is the K-bar knife sheath that everybody talks about. It is in the bed about where police may have found it. But let me ask you this. How do you get the covers off that bed? How do you get Maddie Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves out of that bed?
Oh my God.
And how is that knife somehow just sitting there undisturbed with an evidence placard after everything has been taken out? The morgue, the forensic investigators, everybody have come in. They've moved everything out of that room. And it's a lot. It's 2 human beings butchered and all of the blood-letting evidence, including all of the soft or all of the comforter, the pillows, and everything else. And for some reason, that knife sheath is still in the bed, right?
Could you imagine a cross-examination? Like just imagine a lawyer saying that, how powerful what you
Hell
just said
yes,
is.
I
It's
can.
crazy.
That's where we're going, man.
Yep.
You and I, we're going to go at it. I'll tell you
I
right
love
now.
it.
Birdie,
Love it.
we're going at it. But let's look at this because I don't think I've seen all these photos. I don't think I've ever paid attention to them until you just brought it up. This is the first time I've talked about this, and it's the first time I've mentioned it. But here's where we're going to go. When I think it's publicly available, the Officer Mitch Nunez responded to the 911 call. We have to go back. This is important. Your viewers are going to want to know this. So Officer or Bethany Funk called 911 at about 11:55 in the morning, basically. EMS and police would dispatch to the house for what they thought was a medical emergency. He rolls up. We see the whole thing play out on his body camera footage, right? He walks in the house. He goes up to the second floor, whatever comes out, eventually gets up to the 3rd floor. And we see through the body cam footage, the bed with a comforter on top of the bed, 2 women beneath it, and the mechanism of the crime and everything else. Officer Warner arrives and he walks around to the edge of the bed. He shines his flashlight on the bed, the victims. He shines his flashlight on the bed. There you go. Okay, this is really important. Thank you, man. I got to say, I've done a lot of podcasts. It's so spectacular to point this out. All right, let's go in the bedroom now. And this is not from a report. This is what we can see. Okay. Oh, this is after.
I might have to go back a little bit. Sorry about that.
It's too far back. I don't think you're going to be able to see it. I think it's been redacted, but I could show you some basics of what I'm saying. Because this is all about the knife sheath. It is a foundation of the prosecution, and I want to look and talk about it with you.
Yep. I'm just going to let that play, though, as we're talking. So.
Okay. Well, let's just do this because there's other things I want to show you. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about the placement of that table. So these are 2 law enforcement officers doing a basic clear. I've done a lot of them. There's the kitchen. You see the doors open.
Jesus Christ. I can't have that gun on here. Whoops. Hopefully that doesn't get cut down. All right. Okay. We're good.
So they're clearing. This is after they've already found the bodies downstairs. They've gone outside. They've come back inside and they're clearing the house. Kaylee's bedroom on the left. And you'll see, well, you can't see it, but Murphy, the dog, is on the bed, does not bark, does not interact with them in any way. They turn right. They go down the hallway to Maddie. Okay, now this is the bathroom on the 3rd floor shared by Maddie and Kaylee, though Kaylee no longer lives here, and you go in. Okay, you can't see it, but let's talk about what they see. They turn the corner. The bed is...
Sorry, Chris. I just want to clarify, too. When you had access to this, this is all unredacted for you, correct?
Oh,
when you were watching it?
Absolutely unredacted.
Wow. That's crazy because nobody in here has seen that really other than you. And so you were saying Murphy is on the bed in the first room when they walked up to the left?
The door to the room on the left. That's Kaylee Goncalves' bedroom.
Yep.
Right. And they look in the door. They're doing a clear. So they move through, and two things are important. One, when they go in that room, okay, this is too far past it now, I think, but when they go in there, they demonstrate 2 things. One, that the sliding glass door to the 3rd floor balcony is closed. Okay.
Yep.
That's important. We got to talk about because the dog, we're going to come back to the dog. And I've talked to no one about all these things. You've already picked things that I haven't talked to anybody else about in this way, right? So they look in the door, they being officers Warner and Nunez, look in the room, and Murphy the dog is on Kaylee's bed. You with me? They pull back the curtain. There's a sliding glass door from Kaylee's room that goes out into the balcony, to which there are no stairs. It is a freestanding balcony with no access to the ground. The door's closed. Important for, as we'll come back to it later. Once they've cleared the room, which is very quick, they turn right. They walk down the hallway. They have no idea there's anybody else in the house or that anything else happened. They don't know anything, right? They walk down the hallway. They go in, they look in, and oh my God, there are 2 more victims in this bed. Now we have 4. It went from being a medical emergency, a girl passed out on the 2nd floor. All of a sudden they arrive. They have 2 murders on the 2nd floor. Now they're going up to the 3rd floor. Now they find 2 more. Now you've got a quadruple homicide. This happened organically. They had no idea there was anybody on the 3rd floor when they walked up there. Are you with me?
Yep.
Okay, we good so far?
Yep, we're all good. I'm just
This
kind
is
of trying
going to be really important because we're going to come back because there's blood on that railing. There's blood smudges on the wall. We're going to come back and spend a lot of time. I've never talked about this with anybody else, but it's important because what you're taking me to right now needs a lot of discussion. They turn the corner, they go in the room with flashlights, and they see the 2 victims. Officer Warner goes around the bed. He goes down to the head of the bed where the pillows are at the far end of the room. He stands there with a flashlight, looks down and sees that they clearly have 2 violent, I can't say clearly that they were deceased, but I mean, it was a violent situation. They do not check any signs of life, but they assume that they are dead. But it's important because Officer Warner is standing adjacent to the bed where you see that knife handle, the K-bar knife handle. He looks down and with his camera, he looks down at the bed very briefly, but then he's looking at the floor. This is all important, guys. I'm laying a foundation for this discussion. He looks down at the floor with his flashlight. He doesn't say anything. He walks back out. They have an interaction with other officers. After that, after a few minutes, Officer Nunez goes back into the bedroom. The sergeant asks him to close the door. He goes back in the bedroom when everybody else goes downstairs. He goes in, walks around the bed, goes to the same position Officer Warner was in, looks down with his flashlight, and looks at the floor, and he leaves. I bring this up for this reason. When they filed their report, when they go in with the body camera footage, you can see the body camera looking at the bed, and you can see when he shines a flashlight that it's quite clear that there's a space in the bed between the comforter and the end of the bed, which is where they found the knife. You cannot see it in the body camera footage.
Wait, found the knife or the knife sheath?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. The K-bar sheath. If I ever say knife, I apologize.
I got you. I just wanted to double check.
The sheath. They find this. They see the sheath. That is not obvious. It's not apparent in the body camera footage. Is it conceivable the camera angle was bad? It was under the covers and you didn't see it. Yes, it is, but you can't. Okay. So they leave, and after all this is done, others come in and process the crime scene. What my statement is that they go back and they file reports. Police file reports, obviously. And Warner's report, Miss Nunez's report, they talk about all of the things that they did. They talk about the room, finding the bodies, and all of these various things. Neither of them ever mention a knife sheath. This is important, right? Yep. So the various officials come in. The Idaho State Police was in. Officer Nunez went and wrote what's called an affidavit. I'm sure you all know what that is, which they give to a judge. The judge gives them a search warrant. They go back to the house, and now you can do a legal bomb-proof search of the house, document everything, and that becomes the foundation of the prosecution. I mean, hopefully, that's the idea. So they come back. When they did, because of resources, the Moscow Police Department did a fabulous job with what they had, in my estimation, but they handed it over to the Idaho State Police because they have a crime lab, because they have an evidence team. They have so many more resources. They come in, they start collecting evidence. That didn't happen. This happened at noon. Search warrant was back, I don't know, somewhere around 2, I think. The search wasn't done until, this is all in the book. It was not done until much later. Then they start doing the search. So when a crime scene team comes in to do a search, they have a printed form, at least in this case, they have a printed form that's a spreadsheet. So it's got a box. You write number 1, water bottle, 3rd floor, desk, whatever. You just describe the object, where you found it, and what it is, which is not unusual in any way until you get to item number 14, I believe it was, on that sheet. And it's handwritten by the person picking up the evidence. And it says, K-bar sheath, there's something's crossed out. It says K-bar sheath found on floor next to victim number 3.
It's so crazy.
So everybody goes, who cares? They found a knife sheath on the floor. And I say, well, yeah, there's no evidence that either Officer Nunez or Officer Warner saw it because it's not in their reports and you can't see it in the body camera footage. But who cares? It doesn't matter where they found the knife sheath. They found a knife sheath, right? So now we find ourselves with this group of photographs that you bring up, which becomes an issue for a number of different reasons. So the Idaho State Police detective that bagged that knife sheath wrote in a report that was written a significant amount of time after the fact that it was found in the bed. So you have a handwritten form that says it was found on the floor next to victim number 3. Many people would say, oh, it's just a typo. It's on floor number 3. And he just wrote, instead of writing on floor number 3 next to victim, it says next to victim on floor next to victim number 3. And I would say, yeah, right on. You know, that's a legitimate observation, except that in the next line, it identifies Matty Mogan as victim number 3. So
Yeah.
So then you've got some issues, right? So the next issue, none of this has become an issue ever until we start talking about chain of custody and the single most important piece of evidence, in my estimation, in this whole thing, which is the knife sheath, which had the DNA, which is a foundation of one of the 3 pillars of the case. Am I skipping over anything? Are you still with me?
No, I'm completely following you.
Okay, is this too boring or?
No,
not
not at all.
specific.
You are being specific. It's great.
Okay, so the next thing that we look at is you have to remove the victims' bodies, right? I mean, that's common sense. In order to do that, you start altering the crime scene. Anytime you enter a crime scene, you bring something in. It might be DNA, it might be bad breath, it could be anything, but that's the way it is. Every time you leave, you take something out, right? There's always that issue. So law enforcement agencies take precautions to ensure against that. They have procedures. They have vapor barriers like nitrile gloves. They have various rules. They photograph so they can reconstruct this, because when you find a bad guy, you want him to go to prison for life, right? You got to be very careful about it. So they did videos of the crime scene before and after the evidence collection. They took copious amounts of photographs over a multi-day period. And then you've got to go in and you've got to take the evidence because the bodies have to be removed. You with me?
Right. Yep.
I bring all this up because the photograph that you're showing me now, the series of photographs that you're showing me now, is the bed with the comforter removed, the pillows removed, and the 2 victims' bodies removed.
Yep.
The only thing that you don't see removed is the knife sheath where it was said to have been found. And my immediate question looking at these photographs is why? Why was the knife sheath not removed when every single thing else was? And how do you get 2 bodies out of that bed in that tiny, tiny room without moving that knife sheath? So what the reasonable thing would be that they put the knife sheath in that spot so they could get a clear picture of it, of the placard. So I want to establish that because that is going to lead to your question, I assume, about the next photograph. So I think I know what your next question is. Let's get to this.
Yeah. So then I think we actually started walking down this path by me saying, you'd think there'd be a lot more blood on it if it was in the bed surrounded by it, or if it was dropped throughout the chaotic attack on them, right? So it would come off. There'd be a lot more blood on it, I think, is what most people would assume.
Right. So let's take that. Let's take one thing at a time, because I haven't covered this with anybody. This is the first time we've gone over this. Look at the sheet around placard number 14, which is just a way to identify that. And that corresponds to line 14 in the handwritten sheet. Okay. So what do you see in the sheets?
You see some blood. What one of our blood pattern analyst guests that we had on, he called it blood rain. We see blood on the sheet.
You see blood rain. And when the knife is removed, and we've got all this photo to document it, that same blood pattern is underneath the knife sheath. Okay. And I'll refer to Dr. Brent Turvey, who was helpful. He was hired by the defense specifically to look at this knife. When he was brought in to analyze this case, they never told him what the case was. He didn't know it was the Idaho 4 murders. He didn't know anything about the case. He was just brought in to say, what do you see in the bed? What do you see with the knife? And what do you see as problems by the defense? Okay. The first thing he said, and you should bring him on. He's a fascinating, brilliant man.
I spoke with him over this last weekend for about 40 minutes, and we were chatting, and I know he's got a crazy schedule and whatnot, but I do have his number, and we texted a little bit. So we're working on it. Hopefully, maybe. He said no initially. He had to turn it down. You might do one show I forgot who he said he might go on, but nonetheless, yeah, he very direct, straightforward man, no nonsense.
No nonsense. He makes
agree.
me look like, I try to be very specific and try to be very analytical. I have great respect for him and the work that he's done. But he was brought in to look at this sheath, and he discovered various things about it. This is a knife sheath that we know about the DNA on the downside of it. And his initial reaction was, blood is shed in liquid form. No science there, right? The blood is transferred to surfaces. In this case, it's porous. Blood dries, right? But it's wet for a period of time. And when police found this crime in this bed 8 hours after the fact, when when officers Nunez and Warner arrived and they look in this room, there was a very large pool of liquid blood about where Kaylee's lap would be, meaning the bloodshed was so significant it didn't dry in 8 hours.
Right.
There's blood everywhere. And that blood was in these sheets. And his first reaction was, there's no blood on the knife. There's tiny speckles on this thing. But if this thing was placed in the bed sheets contemporaneous with the crime, you would see transfer of liquid blood from that surface onto the knife. And he said he didn't see that. Then he started finding the report about the knife on the floor. So the question becomes, where was the knife when police got there? Where did it end up? And what does that say about the veracity of investigation of that knife sheath, which at the time was just a knife sheath, but now it's very important because of the DNA. You following me?
Yeah.
So this photograph that you brought up, I would never have brought it up to talk about, but it's critically important. You got something very, very important here. And that is the photograph you see was taken by the forensic team of the knife sheath where it was supposedly found. But how is that the case when you have the morgue and investigators and everybody else coming in and taking the entire bed apart and they never touch the knife? So this is very interesting to me.
It is very interesting. And my first thought when you originally said that, when you said, how do they get the bodies out? How do they take the comforter off? And how does the sheath stay there? Seems very unlikely. Just like it seems very unlikely that it would have landed there and stayed there throughout the course of the attack. The other part that you said that I'm like, okay, I could see that. Did somebody put it up there to take a picture of it? Either way, that should have been documented. Did somebody walk in there and see the bed empty and think, oh, this probably just fell on the floor. I bet it was on the bed, and just pick it up, take the photo there. But those are the things that they really do matter. And when there's not a chain of custody on it, and it's one of the three cornerstones, as you state, right, being the DNA on the sheath, it's a massive deal. It's a huge deal.
Well, and, people will say, I'm a shill for the defense. I'm a former Fed. Everybody's got an opinion. I say, okay, fine. You can have whatever you want, whatever opinion you want. Let's talk about the facts. The facts are the only documentation we have showing where that knife sheath was found, that K-bar sheath was found, was the handwritten report taken contemporaneously with the seizure of that by an Idaho State Police detective that says it was found on the floor. That's what it says. So was it a typo? Were they lying? Whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying, if you're going to do a criminal investigation, at some point you've got to look at the documented evidence and say, okay, we're going to look at that. Is that where the knife sheath was found and photographed and taken and became part of the prosecution narrative? No. So an early question, not a supposition, an early question in this case is, the primary piece of evidence is a K-bar sheath. Was it found on the floor? Was it found in the bed? Why don't we know? What does that say about those options?
I agree. And I think that the prosecution having the pressure to close this and the rush to judgment, right, especially before the public would ever see this, and we're now just learning about it. If you had to pick one of those three pillars to crumble first, whether it's the DNA, the car, or the phone pings, all of them have cracks in it. Which one do you think would crumble first if somebody's testifying under oath? Because I feel like the chain of custody probably holds the most weight with the DNA, in my opinion.
Well, it does. And we haven't even got to the chain of custody yet. We've got to the origin. Where did this thing start? But I would throw it back at you and your viewers. You look at those three pillars of prosecution, claiming that the white car was involved. Say whatever you want. Nobody ever places Bryan Kohberger in the car, right? You have the cell phone tower, but there are no photographs of him in the car. So I would not look at the white. So if this had gone to trial and all Bill Thompson had for evidence was a white car in the neighborhood at the time of the crimes, do you think that you would have been convicted of murder?
Probably not. And to dive into the chat, like what you said, Chris, that's a good point. And I just created a quick poll. Hive, which pillar cracks first? 1 for DNA, 2 for the car, or 3 for the cell phone? Type it out via number, and the results will start to tally on the left-hand screen. And Chris, you can continue, but I do not think that he would have been convicted for murder. No.
Okay. I mean, all you have is a car with nobody in it, right? So many people would argue that the car is not going to convict somebody in a death penalty case. This is a death penalty prosecution for a quadruple homicide. So then you get to the cell tower. We're going to discuss that separately. The cell tower thing is a whole separate deal. But I agree with your audience, 65% DNA. The DNA on the knife sheath, if you ask anybody that's watching this now, anybody that knows this case, anybody that's familiar with it in any way, you would say, what was the evidence against Bryan Kohberger? The vast majority, in my opinion, would say DNA.
Yeah.
Right. So if you take away what everybody believes ties him to the crime scene, then we've got some questions. And that's where the conversation is going. So going back to your photograph and how we got to that photograph, there are some big questions that need answering. Like, how do you get everything else out of that room? The covers, the victims, everything else. And to be fair, Maddie Mogen's leg was partially on top of that sheath, which means they took her body out of the bed and somehow didn't disturb the knife sheath that was under it, right? So this is not, I don't even know if I mentioned this in the book because I don't talk about these specific things, but it's part of the discussion in the book because from here it goes downhill fast.
Yeah, it definitely does seem to go downhill fast. And just in case people are wondering how that poll did finish up, we had 72% DNA, 25% car, and only 3% cell phone. Is that how you would probably rank it out in your head too?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Me as well.
Yeah.
Or
I
myself as well.
I agree with the audience, 100%. Until you hear the reality of where we go in this thing. So let's go with the audience survey and say that 72%, because you could transfer that to a jury. If you're a juror sitting in a box rather than watching us right now, what are you going to want to know about the case? What ties this guy with in the defense table, the bushy eyebrows, what ties him to the actual crimes? You want DNA. We as a modern society want somebody to say we can tie him to the scene by DNA. It's, close case. So where was the knife when police found it? And why is that important? Who cares, right? Who cares is Dr. Turvey introduces this. Why is there so little blood transfer on the sheath itself when the bed is covered in blood, right?
Yep.
That's one thing. Let's keep that as a placeholder.
Okay.
The next question is, what happens to the knife sheath after it's taken out of the room? So anybody that goes to a police academy, anybody that has advanced homicide investigative experience, whatever else, there are specific rules. They're not always really highly technical, but you place certain types of evidence in certain bags. You put certain things in porous things like a paper bag. You put other things in a vapor barrier like a cellophane, whatever. There's some rules like that. But basically, you want to photograph it. You want to put it in a container. You want to document where you found it. You put a chain of custody form on it. And the chain of custody says, this was found here. Somebody signs. It goes, I find it. I sign for it. I hand the bag to you. You sign for it. You take it to the evidence room signs for it. It goes to the lab signs for it. Make sense? So that the attorneys, 2.5 years after the fact in this case, can go back and say, the defense can say, okay, this knife sheath was never taken out of the bag and corrupted because the chain of custody said it went from point A to point B to point C to point D, and law enforcement officers signed for it. You with me?
Yep, I'm following
What Dr. Turvey found, not till the very, very end of this case, but Dr. Turvey found was that the original chain of custody bag did not have a chain of custody form on the bag.
Is that the handwriting that they say is abysmal in the book?
Well, the handwriting is abysmal, but I don't think anybody's going to get in trouble for having bad handwriting.
Right. Okay.
The problem with it is that the photograph of the bag, the evidence bag containing the K-bar knife sheath, the K-bar sheath, and the bag that ended up as a prosecution exhibit has a chain of custody form on it, but the dates are off by 3 or 4 days.
That's right.
And many people have looked at it, and have said it appears apparent that it's all the same pen. It's a black felt tip marker. But more important, because that would be a chemical analysis and take some time. More important, it appears that all names on the bag on the chain of custody form are in the same handwriting. If that is the case, as Dr. Turvey has presented to the defense, and as it's now being a discussion, if that's the case, you have two issues. One, there is no chain of custody. It was fabricated by one person after the fact, and it is a major problem because the defense can go and allege at trial, they can allege that the thing was altered. Not that it was, it's not forgery, it's physical alteration of evidence, and that's a problem. So the remedy in the criminal justice system is that if the cops break the rules, there are remedies to the defendant, and the remedy in this case is exclusion of that evidence. So what Dr. Turvey and many other people have speculated, and what I wrote about in the book, is that the provenance of the knife sheath is, one could argue, is tragically flawed. We don't know where it was actually found. It was placed in a bag and transferred without a chain of custody. Somebody went back after the fact, fabricated a chain of custody with a bunch of different names on it, one person, all of which is could be a major problem for the admissibility. It's not what you have, it's what you can prove. If you can't get it introduced in evidence in a courtroom, it doesn't exist. So what we're talking about now is an element of the defense's case that would have challenged the admissibility of the knife sheath, which means that they challenge the admissibility of the DNA. And if that's taken out, there is no sheath, there is no DNA. And everybody whose name is on that list is corrupted because they were not the ones that signed that form. So you asking about that knife sheath in the bed, that chain of events from the arriving at the crime scene to when it was photographed, where it was found, where it was placed in the evidence bag, what happened with the chain of custody in this bag, Dr. Turvey is pointing out, in my opinion, rightfully so, that could have been a colossal issue had this gone to trial.
And I hope that this is okay that I read this quote actually from Turvey in your book. It says, quote, and this is Dr. Turvey talking, saying, "First, we need to know that this is actually from this case," is a quote that Turvey said. I think that that's just a very interesting and direct approach, because Turvey was, and he says this in your book, saying that Turvey was specifically brought in. He calls it the scabbard, which is another.
He calls it the scabbard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But he was specifically brought in for the sheath, and he's looking at it and he's like, this is wrong. It's so wrong. It doesn't make any sense. And now we need to first know, is this actually from the case?
Right. Well, that's a little bit misleading. You're absolutely right. He was brought in by the defense as an expert witness or as an expert analyst and did not know what case it was. They just showed him the evidence. They didn't tell him about Bryan Kohberger, about the Idaho murders. He didn't know what it was. He didn't see anything else. He didn't see the rooms. He didn't see the blood spray. It was just the knife. Once he found problems and pointed those problems out, he was extended to look at other things. But I think what you're talking about there, he goes in the book, he talks in the book about establishing the chain of custody on the bag. And he says, it says chain of custody, it says knife sheath, it says the dates that correspond, and it's signed, it shows the provenance, and then there's a barcode. Yep. So that might have been part of what he was saying. How do we prove that this bag is even the case that we're talking about? Because he's very methodical. He's very, very detailed. Yeah, I like that you included the F-bomb from him too in there. He's like, how do we know it's chain of custody? Because it says F in chain of custody right here. I mean, listen, this guy's testified, and I don't want to make this all about Dr. Turvey. He can talk for himself, but he's testified in more than 75 homicide investigations in a 30-year career. Testified. Most cases don't go to trial, right? He's written 22 books about crime scene analysis and behavioral, all of these different things. But more than all of that, what I'm trying to say is he is a passionate crusader for truth. This man pulls no punches. He minces no words. When he says something, one time I asked him about his opinion, and he looks at me and he was tear-ass mad. And he looks at me and he goes, opinion? I don't have an opinion. I provide analysis. And I go, okay, man. Yeah. All right. let's back off a little bit.
I mean, I'll share this from our conversation because I was talking about the show and what we dive into it, and I'm like, we're looking at the evidence, and he's like, hold on, he's like, you and I. I can't believe I'm admitting this because he didn't mean it as an insult, but it's very true. He goes, you and I, we don't breathe the same air when it comes to looking at evidence. And I'm like,
look, he's not always a pleasant conversation, but he's a razor blade. That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And I just got to say, I shouldn't look at these comments as they're packing up, but I think somebody just wrote a comment and he says, well, he's talking about Turvey, but he wrote the book. And I would say, listen, dude, we've got to talk about the reality of how these things come about. You have to quote primary source documents, right? You have to quote primary source documents. Who cares what I think about this case? I show you what the experts did along the way. Dr. Turvey was hired by the defense. I'm telling you what he said to explain where the defense was. And I bring in these primary source documents in the book. The entire spine of this book is primary source documents. So,
Yeah, and I see what you're saying by that. I totally understand what you're saying. You had access to it. You explained at the beginning of the stream, as an author and a journalist, you have certain protections and you have a background in FBI and other chaotic situations. I totally understand what you're saying. I think too, with the book and what you are putting out there and how you finish the book, I'm not going to have a spoiler alert, but kind of the last paragraph that you say is alluding to, well, now we have this. What are we going to do about it? We need to start pressing onward. And I think that that's exactly right, because it's kind of like nobody's going to just come out of the woodworks that was working on the case and say, you know what, guys, you're totally right. We biffed on the chain of custody. We didn't see Kohberger in there. We kind of have to create that momentum, and having people like yourself that have seen those unredacted files helps hopefully to get that ball rolling.
I would look at this. Well said, Bertie. I would look at this to the viewer and say, listen, you get 200,000 documents dumped on your desk. It's a 200,000 piece crossword puzzle that really doesn't even have an image on it, right? What I tried to do in this book is look at all of this, boil it down to issues that stand out based on experience, and say to you and to the viewers and the people that are watching this right now, I'm going to present this evidence in a meaningful way that you've not seen before. Like, I think many people generating conversations, because the book's not even out till Tuesday, but many people will say, well, it's this, this, and this. And I'll say, read the fucking thing. I'm sorry.
No, you can cuss. Say whatever you want.
Read the doggone thing. Then we'll have these conversations, right?
Right.
But if you want to talk about what happened, you've got to look at the evidence of what happened. And my whole point, the very first sentence of this book is, this is a case that will never go to trial. We'll never know the motive. We'll never know the means. We'll never know the true mechanism. We'll never know any of these things, because Bryan Kohberger did not allocute. Do I stipulate that he pled guilty? Absolutely. He was a grown man. He was a well-educated PhD candidate in criminology. Am I going to say the poor guy pled guilty and because of whatever else? No, he pled guilty. I don't disagree with that in any way. However, facts of this case very, very strongly suggest to me and an awful lot of other people that somebody else was involved? Yes. So can we go to sleep at night knowing that half the case is solved, and that one or more people are out there running around having committed quadruple homicide? Is that right? So, I'm looking at some of my motivation in this thing, but let's get back to the facts.
Well, and so, okay. So here's what I'd like to do. So we talked about the knife sheath and how it's a cornerstone with the DNA, the chain of custody on all of that. I've said, and this is how I'm going to segue into the car, because you brought up how Bryan Kohberger is a grown man. He's a PhD in criminology. In his apartment, there's photos. What's that? Or sorry, yes, PhD student. Thank you. In his apartment, when they had the photos released, you look at some of his papers that he's written. It's about people who are forced into plea deals and how 90 to 95% of cases don't even get a trial. So he's aware of the situation. Clearly, he's going for a doctorate and he's writing papers on it. Now, I say that because one of the things that has to do with the car that just drives me up a wall is a lot of people want to argue and speculate that Bryan Kohberger had the skills and the knowledge to get away with it, right? Yet made all of these very, what I would call, simple mistakes in a way. One of them with the car being, You're driving the world's most wanted car across the country with your father. If it just seems a little bit odd, you could change and say, I decided to not drive. I'm going to fly there, right? Instead, he's putting himself on there. It's on every television in the world at that point, and he drives across the country. And that's really the first time that we get a glimpse of Bryan Kohberger in his vehicle where we can see him in that car. And oddly enough, that is the only time that we see Bryan Kohberger inside of a white Elantra is when he's in a different state in the Midwest.
Well, look, if you want to start talking about the car, we can skip to the car. And I will say that the investigation started with a Bolo, be on the lookout, for a Nissan Sentra. Then it became a Hyundai Elantra. I think it was 2011 to 2013. And if you look at these cars, you can pull them up on screen. Yep. You look at these cars at that time in America, almost a great number of manufacturers, meaning Volkswagen, Chevrolet, Hyundai, Toyota, numerous other car manufacturers made a car that looked very similar because it's a four-door sedan with a similar hood and trunk, but it has that thing in the window. Bring that picture up. Okay, see the window right there in the back? That is a defining characteristic of cars from that. Yes, exactly. So that's one of the very few things that you can see. I'm sure everybody's looked at great length at the video camera from 1122. And one of the few things you can make out is the rear view, is that window, right? Yep. And I have a record of every single camera shot capture, surveillance camera capture of a white car somehow involved in this investigation. Everyone. Driving to Pullman, driving outside, driving in town, whatever else. And there's all this talk about the license plate and, all of these different things. And I'll tell you, having spent a great deal of time looking at those cars, there's a reason why it took the FBI a long time to go from a Nissan to a 2011 to 2013, eventually to a 2015, because so many cars look like that. And none of them show Kohberger in that car. So I'm not trying to fight the evidence that Bryan Kohberger was in that car. What I'm saying is that the actual proof that he had anything to do with the car always comes down to the cell tower pings placing him in an area that they can tie to that white car being seen on the surveillance. Do you see what I'm saying? Yep. In and of itself, this could be, I have the number. There you go. I have the number, and I don't have it in front of me, of every white Nissan or Hyundai Elantra in Idaho or Washington, that area at that time. It's a big number. It's a big number. And cars that have the same characteristics, that's a much bigger number. So if we're talking about the white car right now, was there a white car near the house? Absolutely. We've seen it over and over. Here it comes again, right? Yep. Is it there at times before and after the murders? Absolutely. Is it compelling evidence against Bryan Kohberger? Yes, it is. In a death penalty prosecution for a quadruple homicide, you've got to have more than, well, there's a white car. You see? So we'll go back to the survey where your viewers looked at it and said, the DNA is important. Is the white car important? Yes. But what does it truly say about the person driving the white car? And that's where we go.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you actually state that very well in your book where you say something around or to the extent of this is a death penalty case. You have a white car.
Death penalty. They got to shoot him by firing squad.
It's unbelievable. And so I've always felt like the white car circling, again, I'm gonna add my opinion in a little bit here because I'm curious what your thoughts are. This is not stealth-like at all. This seems the opposite of what the attack inside of the house looks like. Here, it's slow, it's methodical. They're saying he's going to try to parallel park. He's doing a U-turn. He's circling. He's never been to the house. He's never been inside of it. And now he's just casing it, but bam, in and out under 5 minutes, wherever the actual official time is, right? I think in your book, you're like 4 minutes. No DNA, nothing in his car, too, going that quickly. Nothing in his apartment, no motive, no weapon, all this stuff. The video footage, in my opinion, it doesn't match the rest of the case with how many times you're actually seeing it circle. Does that make sense?
It does. And again, police did a report, a comprehensive report. It's a 30-minute video segment, and it tracks on it like a GPS. There's a map, and it follows the route of various white cars. And at each point where they find one, they show the video of that car passing a camera. So I don't think this is out there yet. But right now, let's look at this right now. We know this is 1112 King Road. We see the car going by on video, right? We can mark that. So the police mark the time signature, they mark the car, and they show a video segment that shows the car. Then there's another one 5 miles away, just somebody's house out in the country. Then there's another one like a bank or something that it's going by that. They map all of these things out with these white cars, none of which you can, in my opinion, and I've looked at it at great length, if you showed it to a jury, I don't think they would have showed it to a jury. If they had showed it to a jury, the first question jurors would ask is, so what? I mean, so can you build that narrative? Yes. Am I saying it's wrong? No. But I'm saying, is it sufficient to convict somebody beyond reasonable doubt for execution in a death penalty case? I suspect this is not alone, is not enough. But we're going to go back. Let's go back to what you said before, Bertie. Okay.
Yep.
By the way, great job, because I've talked to so many people now, and some of the people watching this have watched other shows. And you're talking about things that we have not talked about in those other situations. Here's where we're going to go with the white car. What we know unequivocally, you and I and everybody, I've looked at the file, you haven't, but here's what we know. We know that police found that car in Pennsylvania, they seized the car, and they took it apart. And I mean, they took the brake pedal off, they took the brake pad off the brake pedal, they took the steering column apart, they took that thing down to nuts and bolts. And they analyzed every single element of it. And Bill Thompson talks about this in his change of plea evidence recitation, right? You know what they found in terms of DNA in that car? Zero.
Nothing.
Zero. And he said it had been cleaned. If you saw the pictures of that car, I would say, cleaned where? Cleaned where? I mean, these guys drove cross country from Washington, he and his dad. That car had Band-Aids and loose change and receipts and hotel cards. It was full of stuff, right? You know what they didn't find is any evidence of anything whatsoever. I'm not defending Kohberger. I'm saying, here's the next question. We know there's blood all over that house, and we haven't talked about it, but the common areas of blood, we know that the killer tracked blood from the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor through the common areas. There's blood everywhere. Overwhelming evidence to anybody that looks at it that the killer was covered in blood, liquid blood that he cast off in the house, ran from that house out to this white car, jumped in the car, and speeds away. How does anybody soaked in blood get in a car with cloth seats and not track to that car any evidence of any kind? I'm not saying that this implies his innocence. This is not a wrongful conviction book in any way. What I'm saying is, how do you use that white car as a pillar of the prosecution? Let's go back to your survey that 27% of your voters, or whatever it was, 20-something percent.
25%.
25% of your voters, common sense looking at the evidence, would say, I don't see the car being a big thing for, evidentiary as part of a prosecution narrative. And the primary reason is not that we can't identify it, not that we can't put Bryan Kohberger in it, but that they never found a single cell of anything. So I think
crazy.
that, as we talk about this, and well done, because I haven't talked about any, I talk about it in the book, but I haven't talked to anybody else about it. But you bring up great questions, Bertie. I mean, it really is a big issue.
It's a huge issue. And what I think people need to remember with this case has totally changed my mindset, not to sidetrack too much. It's totally changed my outlook on our justice system needing trials, right? You shouldn't be overcharged and forced into a plea deal or have your back against the wall because the death penalty is thrown at you and they kind of strong arm you to take the plea to get that off the table, right? So all that aside, we have to remember too that what you just laid out, asking questions almost Socratically to the jury, they're going to realize, well, that just wouldn't be possible. Even if someone did say he was in the nude potentially, right? I mean, I think they would come.
Okay, so let's talk about that because that's very important. So, I mean, now I think I've talked about this enough now. Certainly when people start reading this book, because it's all very methodical, it's very linear, it's very analytical and logical. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
You've read the book.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So far more than what we talk about here, laying the thing out. But let's go back to the trial. Let's say there was a trial, there was not. Let's speculate that this evidence was produced to a jury, and the jury is going to look at him, and you never know what a jury's going to do, right? But they want some kind of evidence, and it comes down to the car, the cell phone tower pings, and we're going to come back to that. I saw somebody said something about Cy-Ray and about the cell tower analysis. We're going to come back to that because it's very important, very important. But just the car, how do you present to the jury that this car was used in the commission of these horrific murders in a very, very short period of time, and that this killer was soaked in blood because all of the forensic evidence, Paulette Sutton's report for the prosecution said he was soaked in blood, and that's going to come back to what we're talking about, the naked part of it. How did he get out of the house without tracking anything out of the house anywhere, ever, on the concrete slab, in the snow, in the dirt, whatever, get in his car and drive away, go to his apartment, and nothing was ever found in any of those places? It's certainly, you can tell what the defense is going to argue, right?
Yeah. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. One would think it's not possible.
One could easily speculate it's not possible. So then we come back to the question about naked, and Dr. Turvey's talked about this.
Yep.
So Paulette Sutton is a criminologist, lifelong career, very experienced. I think she's probably had a great career. She was hired by the prosecution at the very end, like 2 years, just for going to trial, to come in and look at all the evidence and say what happened. She's a forensic analyst. She comes in, does her report. I think it was 65-page report with photographs, many of which you have, and I want to get those up here in a minute, right? Okay. Actually, I don't even know what she looks like, but okay, there's
her,
Dr. Yeah. I mean, excuse me, she's not a doctor, but that is Paulette Sutton. So she does the report, and because of the Brady disclosure requirements, that has to go to the defense. Ann Taylor looks at this report, and she goes, okay, I'm going to give it to Turvey. She hands it to Turvey. Turvey looks at the report, and you can let him talk about that. The first thing that stands out is she says in her report she never saw any evidence. Zero. None. She looked at photographs of the evidence, and she looked at 7,000, 8,000 photographs. I forget how many. I've looked at the same photographs. And she makes her analysis based on that. She gets the report. It goes to Turvey. Turvey tears it apart. And he goes back to her because his report has to go back under disclosure, goes back to the prosecution. She writes a report, goes to the defense. Turvey writes a rebuttal. It goes back to her, and then they have a bit of a back and forth, a discussion about it. So Turvey says, and he'll tell you this, it's in the book, he says, look, how does this killer, Kohberger, run around the house wearing a black balaclava, black clothing, killing women on the 3rd floor, killing Xana and Ethan on the 2nd floor, spreading blood all over the living room, on the ping pong table, the beer pong table, on the knee wall, on the far wall? How does this blood get everywhere? It gets there because he's running. Okay, great point. So the killer moves from screen left to screen right through the beer pong table, and there's blood on that by the White Claw box. There's blood on the wall. There's blood on the wall to the right where you see all those purple circles right there. There's blood all over the place. The reason that blood is there is because the killer was swinging something that cast blood. That blood is from Maddie Mogan and from Kaylee Goncalves on the 3rd floor. That blood is being thrown like a baseball or a football or some whatever metaphor you want to use by a violent action of somebody pitching it. You with me?
Yep.
So the prosecution case is it's a knife that he's stabbing and hacking at Xana as she goes through there. So Turvey goes back and he says, look, in your report you say this blood was transferred by the violent throwing of the liquid blood. How is that conceivable that he didn't track any of it out of the house? And that's where the naked part comes. According to Dr. Turvey, she says, well, he went and cleaned up and took off all those clothes. So he goes, so you're saying he was running around naked, which is it, right? And then gets the clothes out. But that's not where Dylan Mortensen saw him. When Dylan Mortensen saw him, he was fully clothed, headed to the door. So there's major gaps in that narrative.
And I will share a theory. I understand the whole facts thing, but one of the ways that we've talked about you brought up the bathroom downstairs, and I'm not skipping ahead, but and then there's been reference of a cleanup. Somebody in the Hive actually had mentioned this. I thought it was a very good theory, is that did the blood, if they were cleaning up, were they kind of just throwing it to the bottom of the stairwell, rags,
No.
Towels? Okay. No.
Well,
Okay.
well, first of all, if anything were laundered, it would be on the second floor. The laundry, the washing machine is down that hallway to the left. That's the bathroom.
But
right?
if they bagged it, one would think they would probably throw it away, right?
Right. And we'll get there because I've got something we haven't talked about, the mysterious SUV that we haven't talked about yet that I talk about in the book. So the question is, if all that blood is on the wall, if all that blood, the walls, it's on that flat surface, that wooden surface, it's on the beer pong table, it's down the hallway, it's on the floorboard. See the molding down by that orange bag? Yeah, the molding, but in a different place. Well, no, okay, so leave this up. Okay, skipping around. All right, just look at that photograph, right? So look at that orange bag, and you see to the wall to the left of the bag, above the bag, yeah, right in there, that area right there, there was blood there. There was blood on the wall. And then see the molding by the floor, that white piece of molding by the floor? There's blood there as well, okay?
Yep.
There's blood all over the vertical surfaces and on many of the horizontal surfaces in that part of the house. You know how much blood they found on the floor? 0.
That's crazy.
How do you get from move through that house? Disregard the beer pong table and all the other questions. How do you have blood all over the vertical surfaces and many of the horizontal surfaces, and you have no blood whatsoever on the floor? Explain that to me.
You know what's funny? I've even had a blood pattern Jesus, I can't
Analyst.
talk. Yeah, analyst Jeffrey Gentry on. He was rather perplexed too, right? You could say, well, maybe they did this or maybe they did that, right? But to get
okay,
it
tell me what did they do? Tell me what did they do?
Well,
how do you do that without getting blood on the floor?
A lot of people have speculated, was it shoe covers? Did they, is there tarps laid down? Did they use some sort of
well, let me tell you this about shoe covers. Shoe covers just cover your shoe. They still get covered in blood and they still track blood.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Right. I mean, so you have experience in crime scenes in general, and not even pertaining necessarily to this case. Have you ever seen somebody murder 4 people with a knife and not leave footprints walking out?
No.
Yeah. I mean, it seems very unreasonable and improbable.
There's blood on the floor. Looking down that hallway in that photograph, when you get to the doorway, it is awful. There's blood. So this is Kaylee's room. There's blood everywhere. There's blood all over the floor. There's blood everywhere. When you cross that threshold from the blood in the room to get out into the hallway, it stops. There's none. 0. Not a drop. Nothing.
Yeah. It's just so weird. It's so weird. I know a lot of people too, when they had read in the reports that the bodies were posed or staged, people had thought, were they killed outside of the house? And did they mean that they brought them back to 1122? Can you say unequivocally that did not happen?
They died in that bed. Yes.
They died in that bed. Xana died fighting on the floor. Ethan was in the bed as well.
Oh, well, you're talking about the second floor. I thought you meant the third floor.
Well, either way, I'm talking in general, but none of the victims were killed elsewhere and brought back.
Well, Paulette said, again, I'm answering all these questions based on evidence, not my supposition, right? But I can say Paulette Sutton's report is unequivocal. Even Ethan Chapin was found in bed naked, except for a pair of white socks. The floor was covered in blood, and there's no blood on his socks. The reasonable conclusion is he never left the bed. He was killed in bed, never left the bed. And he was not carried to the bed. That would have been impossible due to the nature of the wounds and the tracks that would have been left in doing that. There are major problems with blood in the common areas ascribed to Ethan, but that's another question. These 4 people died where you see that where they were found.
And so going back then to that question of they were not killed outside of the house, not any one of those 4.
Oh, by the way, I just glanced. I don't look at these comments, but I just glanced at one, and they said, "Well, why is there no blood on the floor?" And the answer is, it was cleaned up. Somebody cleaned the blood off the floor, all the floors, right? There's blood on the floor, and there's the famous blood that was found outside Dylan Mortensen's room. The footprint in the blood. That blood was cleaned up also. They found it with a luminol test after the fact.
I actually believe that I have.
If you had that photograph, it would be great. But the question, maybe I'm not being obvious enough in some of the things that I'm talking about. What I'm getting at is the crime scene on the 3rd floor, the bedroom, looks like a crime scene. There's red blood with all the characteristics you would expect. The same thing, the bedroom on the 2nd floor is red blood, dried, blood spatter, blood transfer, and everything else. The areas from the entire second floor, from the bottom of the staircase to what you're looking at, the door to Xana's bedroom, that entire area looks dramatically different than any other places in the house. Because, as Paulette Sutton said, those blood stains were diluted with an unknown substance. Well, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah,
Why
what
would the
does that
blood
mean?
stains-
Water?
They never say. But first
Yeah.
of all, I mean, we could talk. I don't want to get into things I've talked about in
Right,
other shows
right.
unless you want me to. We're trying to stay,
No, let's stay
exclusive
fresh.
to these things.
Let's stay fresh.
Yeah, let's stay fresh. So let's stick with what you're talking about right here.
Yep.
And the answer is that there is a very, very, very big hole in this thing, suggesting that somebody cleaned up those areas of the second floor. The blood does not look the same. The prosecution report says those blood stains, and there's a ton of them. Do you have another, Bertie? Do you have another? Okay, look at that right there. That wall right there is covered with blood, right? Some of those things, when you get really close, if you zoom in, like right in the middle of the screen, zoom in. Okay, that is a blood stain where you can see that blood hit the wall and dripped down. It looks like a blood stain. Go back to the original picture.
Yep.
Now go to right in the middle of the screen.
Are you at this one zoomed
Yeah,
in?
that
Let me zoom
picture,
in for
but
you.
look where that green dot was, the photo you just had with the green dot. What I'm trying to point out is what you're seeing very, very close up are blood stains. They're drips of blood that you can't even see in a photograph. How did a blood stain that we see in those rooms get to look like that? It has no dimension. Blood, I say to your viewers, throw something against the wall. I don't care what it is. Ketchup, spaghetti sauce, throw it against the wall and watch it dry. When it does, it has geometry. It has a shape. It has edges. It has mass. It has things that you can discern. It has color. These blood stains in the common areas of the second floor have none of those things. How is that possible?
No,
well, this
they
one
don't.
does, because that was on the
got more
far
mass.
side of the wall. Perhaps, but this shows you the difference between this and all of those, and these stains, right? The difference between those two is dramatic. You don't need to be a blood spatter expert or a forensic criminologist. You need to look at them and say, okay, does that cause you to ask any questions?
It should. And I've always been curious too, just in general, about the blood as you're walking up. I mean, nobody saw this. When you also, I got to interrupt myself here. When you pointed out the White Claw box, I have looked at this stairwell, and many people have looked at the blood there. I never once assumed that this White Claw box was moved on top of a blood stain. And when I picture that one little detail to me opened up this entire floodgate of possibilities of, oh shit, there's a blood stain there. Just put something on top of it. It seems like maybe they had time, but they still couldn't get it all. And then there was somebody hurrying. Again, I'm speculating on that. But
Okay. Great speculation. Great question. Let me say something about this photograph. Don't change this photograph.
Okay, I won't. Yep.
Okay. So listen, I say a million things in 430 pages of this book. And one is that there is a blood stain. It is on the flat part of that surface, and it has been diluted with an unknown substance. In fact, nobody's ever really even said where it was. The White Claw box is on that ledge. That White Claw box changes in various photographs during the course of this. And there's not a police report that says that stain was under the box, but doing all the measurements, like you go to Home Depot and you find out how wide that board is. It's industry standard, is building codes, and you measure the White Claw. You go to 7-Eleven and buy a White Claw box. You do all the measurements and you can estimate where it is, and that is what suggests that stain was under the White Claw box. It was never found until after the fact, and there are many pictures that show that after the White Claw box was moved, police put their equipment on top of that. So is it plausible that a police officer somehow touched it someplace else and transferred it there? Yeah, this is something that people could argue about. It's things that we could talk about, and that's not a primary thing. What is not arguable, and what is profoundly important, if you ask me, is that next to the White Claw box, that small circle, can you hit that with your cursor? Yes, right there, and maybe you have a photograph of it. Right there, the investigators found non-diluted blood, dried, that was, at least Paulette Sutton's initial analysis showed was Ethan Chapin's, who never left the room. So how did it get, if somebody kills him in that bedroom, flees down that hallway, turns right, confronts Dylan Mortensen and runs out that sliding glass door, And I want to come back to the sliding glass door and the heat and the cold. I know somebody asked that question. How did that blood get on the other side of that stairwell? Did he stop and reach over and transfer that blood? It's one of many, 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 many questions. But somebody asked me in one of the other shows, they said, if I had to look at the one thing in this case to center conversation around, what's the one thing that I think is the cornerstone of problems with this case? You're looking at it. You're looking at the center of that living room with the beer pong table. That's it. That is where everything falls apart.
Yeah, you made that quite a point of emphasis in the book as well with, did that table get flipped over and fall onto its side? And then is that what the bang, or was that the bang that woke up Bethany downstairs?
Well, was that the bang that we hear on the camera?
Or on the camera, yes.
4:17:22, that happens to coincide with what people say was probably Xana screaming, right? But there's a loud bang, and then do you want to talk about Bethany's thing? We're kind of skipping around.
No, we can talk about Bethany's. I think this is all flowing. I feel like people in the chat, they've looked into the second floor a lot, and they know Bethany and Dylan's stories well. And the one thing before we get off the blood though is if that table was tipped over, I do wonder if that makes maybe some stains make more sense. If did water from the cups, did they fly off? And then did it hit blood on the wall? That was the diluted source, right? You could ask a million questions on that. But if the table flipped over and then it was set back up again, you're shaking your head. Am I way off?
No. Well, yeah, you're way off.
I'm way off. Okay.
Sorry, Birdie. Sorry,
no,
dude.
I like
you're a
the
very
honesty.
Smart dude. You're a very smart dude. You ask great questions. I laugh because I've done reenactments, and I've done studies, and I've done trajectory studies, and I've done the math, and I've studied it in great detail. There's no way to make sense of the stain, in my opinion, and this is an opinion. In my opinion, looking at Paulette Sutton's report, Dr. Turvey's analysis, the crime scene photos, everything that we know about the case, there is no way to put those stains on that knee wall if that table is where it is right now. You cannot lob something into that gap, not hit the cups, and not hit the wall. And if those cups somehow did spill fluid and wash it off the wall, how did the cups get back to where they are now?
I would consider that a part of a cleanup, right? They've replaced, they were reset.
So let's go to your cleanup, right?
Okay.
So why would I think the table got flipped over? Because you are getting attacked with a knife at 4:17 in the morning. You're fleeing for your life from the kitchen across the living room, down the hall into your bedroom where we know she died, and somebody's hacking at you with a knife. Are you going to go around the table and walk through that 18-inch gap and not somehow touch those cups? Explain to me that movement, right? So I look at it and say, whether or not the table, what does it say if the table was knocked over? Nothing. I mean, it is completely common sense that a struggle this violent that led to a murder, sure as hell they're going to knock the table out of the way. She's running for her life. She's not going to tiptoe around the table. That's not the question. The question is, how did it get back to what you see there? Bethany said she heard a loud bang, and the next thing she heard was the beer pong table, and then she heard a bunch of cups moving around. That's Bethany. That's what she said. The bang, she thought maybe it was a firecracker. That's what woke her up. But then she was very specific that she heard somebody moving the beer pong table, and she heard cups moving. Who would that be, right? And the question is, how did that table, if it was flipped over, and if that was the bang, how did it get back to what we see right there, and why?
That's a great question. I believe too that Bethany in her interview had speculated. She's like, I thought maybe it was just Ethan, moving.
I don't remember her saying that.
I could have sworn
listened to him along, but she was unequivocal. She said it numerous times. She was unequivocal that she heard a bang, and that she said specifically she heard the beer pong table and she heard the cups moving around. So, do the math.
Are you privy to any insight? And I pray that you are. I have racked my brain as many people have. What is the flash that Bethany saw under her doorway? I've
looked and seen and gone over it a billion times. There's nothing anywhere that indicates what that could have been. I think the only thing I would say is if you look at photographs of Bethany's room, the blinds in one of her windows is broken, meaning that the windows in Bethany's room face the front parking lot. You with me?
Yep.
And one of those blinds is broken. So is it conceivable that somebody pulled into the driveway or a passing car or the headlights of some kind of a car? Is it conceivable that that was a flash of light? Maybe. There's nothing that indicates anything else. There's no flashlight, candle, fireworks. There's nothing else that anybody ever pointed to.
Yeah, because I've racked my brain, as many people have, on was there a Sensi that broke? Was there a stun gun or a taser used, right? Was it a gun muzzle, or was it the muzzle flash from a gun?
All great possibilities, none of which make sense within the constructs. A gun goes off, you're going to see a bullet somewhere, right? Or you're going to hear the bang. If you heard the bang of the table, or if you heard the bang on the camera at 1112, you'd hear a much louder bang from a gun, right? So you can look at other things to run through all of those. But, many people would say it was a flashlight. It was dark and somebody was walking through the house with a flashlight. Is that plausible? Yeah.
I could see that. And well, that would mean that most likely somebody was downstairs then while somebody was upstairs attacking. Do you believe?
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying,
no, I get
you.
Go
down the list. A gun is improbable. A flashlight is more probable.
I see. Now, okay. Where do you want to go from here? So you just said, I want to make sure that I stay on your talk track. So, or as far as like your talk path, you were bringing up Bethany. I don't want to digress too much. So Bethany hears the bang. I just asked you about the flash. You brought up Bethany's room. Do you want to get into the two surviving roommates now?
Sure, if you want to, yeah.
Okay. So I want to lean on your experience and things that you've been around and throughout your career in the FBI. And I am asking for your opinion on this, just in general. If somebody waits 8 hours to call 911 and was home the whole time, I think most people would say that's a little bit suspicious, especially given the brutality of this. Now, the unconscious person that they called for, given how now a lot of people say it was obvious Ethan's wounds, you could see him from, however many feet away.
Okay, we got to talk about that because that's not true, and I want to talk about that.
Oh, let's go into that then. So why don't we talk about then? Let's start here then, dude. Dylan sees a masked man, sees Xana on the floor running down to Bethany's room. Okay, so let's get there. So Bethany just heard the bang, and now Dylan, we understand that whole progression. Dylan is running downstairs into Bethany's room. That's where we'll be. That's where we'll start from here.
Well established.
Okay. And now Dylan does see Xana laying on the floor, but thought maybe she was just passed out, claims to have not seen Ethan. You stated Ethan had only, white socks on. Did she see Ethan? Did she not? We don't know. What is your opinion on the entire progression from Dylan going from the second floor down to Bethany's room?
My opinion is that you don't know the entire progression because it's not been released, discussed, or played out. It's not what you think it is.
So when I hear that, though, can you help myself and the people listening? Why? Why is that such a touch and go subject? It's always confused me. Like I said, when I started this stream, we have what seems to be a straightforward narrative of a lone wolf actor with a knife, no connection. He just was a wannabe serial killer criminology dude that was creepy. Why is that? So
he was creepy. Yeah. What's the point? What's the point of creepy?
Right. Well, exactly. But I'm saying the point of this, why is this progression so secretive of the movements in the house? What would that be kept? Is it, I guess.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll answer that question and I'll speculate something else. Or
okay.
Not speculate. I'll offer you something else.
Please
First
do.
of all, you have two 19, 20-year-old female college students in a house where 4 horrific homicides occurred. Most people emotionally would look and say, oh my God, that's horrifying. They're victims. Also, I can't imagine their suffering. And that's been widely played out in many, half your viewers right now are going to start screaming at me, don't be an asshole, Whitcomb, and say these things, right? And I'll say, yes, it was horrifically traumatic. And we've got to believe what they tell us in all these stories and all these interviews. And that's not my job, right? Which leads to the second thing, is it is the job of law enforcement investigators to ask them questions, not implying that they were somehow involved, but asking them in questions because they're the only witnesses, right? I mean, the bushy eyebrows and whatever he was carrying in his hands, it was cylindrical, had a triangular base, maybe a vacuum cleaner. Don't you want to know from the only witness the answers to 1,000 questions? Guess what? Nobody did. Nobody did.
The questions, I call them kid glove questions that it seemed like Dylan and Bethany
Because
were asked.
emotionally, you can't ask somebody. It's like you look at the John Benet Ramsey case, or originally in the what was that guy's name? That the Green Beret that was anybody that is in a building when these things happen, they're always treated as a witness. And when they fit a certain demographic, which is a vulnerable young college student or something like that, you have to say, I'm going to defer to the trauma that you've suffered. I'm not going to interfere, that you need help, you need counseling, meaning Bethany and Dylan, right? And you can't just come right at them and start going, well, did you kill these people? That's not what happened. You have to honor the fact that they were traumatized as a course of this. But at some point, as investigators, you have one witness. I mean, Bethany kind of, because she heard some things. But you have one witness, which is Dylan Mortensen, that came face to face, based on her own words, came face to face with the killer. Now we believe, Bryan Kohberger, right? But don't you want to know other things like, why did it take hours? Or what did you hear? What did you do? What did you see? Where did you go? And then you start getting into, why did the dog start barking at 5 o'clock in the morning? Who let the dog in? When was the door open? I saw somebody had a question about the sliding glass door and the heat in this thing, and I think that's very important. Police arrived at the house and they found the door open to the kitchen, sliding glass door. The thermostat was 12 feet away, 15 feet away, and it was 28 degrees at that night in that outside. How did 28-degree air coming through that wide open door not keep the thermostat pumping that house full of heat? It was not hot when they got there. All of these questions can be answered by one person, and that's Dylan.
Right.
And we don't know the answer. And you know why? Because they didn't ask her. It's not implying, I'm not implying in any way, I know people do. I'm not implying in any way they had anything to do with anything. But if I have one witness in a homicide scene, I want to ask that witness questions as an investigator.
And it seems, so I agree with your point on the instinct is to treat what you may deem a victim with some fragility, right? Some gentleness. However,
person, not me. I'm trying to take myself out of this, but most people would, yes.
Yeah, I got to get better at that, so forgive me. But
no, I got to say the right things.
I got you.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, I got you. So, if you look at the King Roadhouse like a family, right? So if the wife goes missing, as hard as I'm sure it is for investigators to go and question the husband right away, well, you have to clear the family. And if you look at the King Roadhouse like a family, you have to clear the people that were closest in proximity to these homicides first. And with what we've seen, the way that they're quote unquote clearing them always begins with, I want to make it known to you. You are not a suspect. You are not this. You are right. And it goes into those questions.
Thank you. Very well said. Very well said.
Why do you?
Look, I would encourage your viewers. I hope many of your viewers are looking at this and they're saying, "Well, I got to check on this and I got to check," and they get involved. That's what I'm hoping happen. I hope happens. But I would say just Google, as you're watching this, just Google the percentage of people statistically involved in homicides in the United States that don't know one of the victims. Just Google it. I'm not going to say it. Somebody's going to put it up in the comments. Probability is a day-to-day part of life. If I sit here comfortably talking to you, everything's fine. If I stand up on this table and dive on my head, I'm going to die, right? There's a statistical probability in absolutely everything we do. And there is a statistical probability in almost every aspect of crime scene investigation. That's why we have all these studies and why we have all these various research groups. The statistical probability of somebody, of a quadruple homicide in a building that where there was no sexual assault, because there's no motive of sexual assault, the statistical probability of a murder by a stranger is quite low. I mean, hopefully somebody posts it. It's very low.
It's 10 to 13%.
10 to 13%. So out of 100 murders, 90 of the victims knew their assailant.
Yeah, and so according to the 2023 Bureau of Justice statistics, there were about 19,800 homicide victimizations. Roughly 65% were known offenders. 12.5% were an intimate partner. 13.4% was another family member. 38 to 39% was non-family, but known to the victim, like an acquaintance or a friend. And the rest would have been people unknown. But yeah, that is a crazy statistic.
It's a crazy statistic.
Now, add on to that, Chris, humor me here.
Okay.
Please.
All right.
You talked about the probability of that. Now let's talk about the probability of the chain of custody pointing to DNA that I know you're an ex-FBI, but it seems like the ex-FBI broke their own guidelines to obtain that DNA that then comes from his father's Q-tip that Bryan just so happened to be driving the most wanted car across the country with. And he's writing papers about plea deals and people who are forced into it, right? I could go down this whole rabbit hole, but
okay, let's because I don't like this rabbit hole. I don't think it's accurate in any way.
No, you're good. You're good. I just
no. I want to comment on these things. I don't accept any of them as real.
Okay, explain that.
Explain that. You're gonna have to go through the whole thing again. The DNA that they found. First of all, the FBI. I don't think it was the FBI. I think it was the Pennsylvania State Police that did a trash pull. Right? They go up to a house and they take the trash. You've seen it in a million TV shows.
Yeah.
It's a warrantless search. You don't need a warrant. It's disregarded. It's discarded property. They took it and they did a DNA sample test that matched familial DNA with what they had for a profile from the knife sheath. That is not an STR match. That is an investigative genealogy match, which is what you get on Yumi and 23 or
right.
Any of these genealogy sites, and that's where you're going. But they're very different, and you've got to look at those things. Nobody said, and Bill Thompson did not say in a change of plea testimony or evidence recitation, he did not say that Bryan Kohberger's DNA matched the knife sheath based on that trash pull. They went and they said, we find a relationship, but it's a very, very different thing. And Bill Thompson was very specific in not saying that. He did not say that.
So, okay, I see what you're saying. The trace DNA, touch DNA, right? Whatever. My point in saying that, just to clarify, Chris, was that not knowing somebody and being murdered by them, more times than not, you're going to know them. The only thing at the crime scene being trace DNA, whether you want to argue then the chain of custody, how they went about it, what methods they used, how many people, it tracked back to 4 brothers, all the stuff that you talk about in your book. I was going to culminate that into what are those odds then when you start stacking those up to really end up in his position.
Yeah.
It's unlucky to say, it's unlucky at a minimum, and it's something else at the maximum. But
unlucky what? Unlucky that they tied it to him?
Just to have all these things with so many motions getting shut down and the media showing pictures of your muffin top and trying on jeans. You got Ashley Banfield showing those off. Everyone.
I mean, some of those pictures were terrible, Bertie.
I know, but it's just like this. Everything that could have gone wrong for Bryan Kohberger went wrong. It seemed like. Okay,
I would suggest that if you read the book, you look at all those things that went wrong, and maybe they didn't go wrong. I make a very, very detailed explication of DNA and what it actually was, not what you think it was, but what it actually was. And then you start going through. I've got every selfie that Bryan Kohberger posted on his phone. When he went to Washington, he got a cell phone, AT&T.
Okay.
So there's a dump of every text message and every data transfer he had from then until certainly till the crimes and I think till they get to Pennsylvania. And there's a lot of really ugly selfies on that thing, right? But there's nothing else. There's 300, forgive the number, I'm going to say 3,407 text messages, something of that effect. And it's not what I saw. Bill Thompson and the prosecution found zero link of any kind in any social media, any text message, any data transfer, any email, anything whatsoever that tied him to those victims. And again, I'm not trying to exonerate it. I'm saying Bill Thompson did not enter those into the evidence because it wasn't there.
Okay. So we got a little bit sidetracked with the DNA and talking about that, but we had been talking about Dylan and the kid glove question. So to refocus now on that, with the
Okay.
interview, you talked about the last point that you had made before we kind of went off on that tangent was just talking about the probability of not knowing somebody and them randomly murdering you.
Well, yeah, I wasn't trying to make a point. I was just saying that, statistically,
Right.
Yeah.
And so now we were going back to the interviews, and you had briefly talked about how just the way that you have to maybe question them, being more of a fragile college-age female who just understandably maybe witnessed something very traumatic. When we start to think about that only witness, you do a good job in the book. I believe you mentioned out of all of the answers, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, and I apologize. Do you know off the top of your head?
I think it was 72.
72 times Dylan says, I don't know and I don't remember.
Yes.
That is insane.
Well, this is the fourth interview. 2 of them were done in the presence of her attorney.
Yep.
And the fourth interview, in all the interviews, were very, very respectful of the trauma that she went through, right? There were no really interesting questions, except in one of the interviews, she was asked questions by a law enforcement officer from another state. But they all treated her as a traumatized witness. Great. I'm not arguing with that in any way. But I will say that by the time we got to that fourth interview, virtually everything in that interview, is this not public record? I thought this was released. I thought this interview was released.
Which part? The fourth one?
Yes. Is that not released?
Hi, you guys can help me out
released
with
and
that.
what's not.
I don't think it will. I thought there was 3.
All I can say is I've listened to it 10 times. No, I don't want to exaggerate. Yeah, I've listened to it 10 times. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a fair estimation. In listening to it in 10 times, I've counted over and over, because if I put a number in this book, I want to stand behind the number, right? So
Yep.
Was it 78? Was it 71? Maybe. But it depends on how it's framed, because I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know if it's real. I don't know whatever else. It could be stated in a lot of different ways, but that's a fairly accurate number of saying that, which means one thing and one thing only. Means that everything that a witness says, if any witness, not Dylan, any witness says, I saw a tree, but I don't remember. I saw a wall, but I'm not sure. I saw this, but maybe it wasn't real. That means that every single solitary thing is not going to, you can't really ask that in court, because you don't want to say to a jury, what did you see? I saw a wall, but I don't really remember. What's the point, right? So my only point when it comes down to Dylan is, I'm sorry for the trauma, that everybody suffered in this thing. But why did police not ask information that became part of the narrative? I want to know why. I don't want to know what Dylan said or why she said it. I don't want to know those things. I want to know why the police didn't ask those questions. That's what I want to know.
See, I want to keep asking you for your opinion, because you have so much experience on it, and
I'm not going to say.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not gonna
figured, and I understand. I get it. So now this also goes into where you had said that there's circumstantial evidence and just circumstantial things around this case. I believe that the book does a really good job explaining that. What is the line then of reasonable doubt when it does come to court, right? It depends on the jury. Do you think that Dylan and Bethany's interviews would help or hurt the state's narrative?
Another great question. I don't believe that anything Bethany said really could have helped or hurt it, but I do not believe they would have called her to the stand. I mean, I can't speak for Bill Thompson. Based on what I've seen, based on talking to various people, sources that I talked to in this thing, I don't understand a world in which the prosecution could have called Dylan or Bethany to the stand to deal with the withering cross-examination that Ann Taylor would have heaped upon them for the questions that you're asking. Look, can I see some of these comments?
Yep.
Am I saying that they had nothing to do with this thing? No. Am I saying they had something to do with it? No, I'm not saying any of those things. I'm saying I can't talk about it. I can't talk about those things, right? I can't, right? So I can say this, that based on what I've seen, I don't see a circumstance where they would be called as witnesses because of what you already know about the 8-hour delay and when they went to bed, when they didn't go to bed, who came and went, what she saw, what she didn't see, because nothing was ever said with certainty. She never said he had bushy eyebrows. That changed. She never said what that device was. It changed. Was it a vacuum? Was it something else? Where was it when he attacked Xana? She's running around and he's hacking her. What happened to the vacuum? Never said this happened, or I remember this time frame, or I was doing this. Zero. How do you call a witness to the stand when they don't actually remember anything? So would they have been called to this? Would they have been called to the stand? I don't know. I don't see how Bill Thompson, you could ask him, I don't know of any prosecutor that would call a witness to the stand when they don't know the answer to the question. That's a common link. Every lawyer will say that. Every lawyer will tell you, don't ask a question you don't know the answer. And in this case, nobody knew the answers.
Well, and also you just brought up the chat. We have a lot of questions that I'm going to start going through and asking you.
Yes. Tell me what people want to know.
Yes, I'm going to start. I reserve the right to ask the first question because this is something that I do think will really help everybody before we go into these questions with what you can answer, what you can't answer. Okay. So, and feel free to obviously say that, there's obviously no way for us to quote unquote force it out of you, but could you explain then for things that you're not able to say, how should we look at those type of things? There's a lot of them in this case, right? There's a lot of things in this case where it seems like I can't talk about it, or maybe people get that feeling. If they do know, they're like, I shouldn't, right? But as we know, the whole journalists aren't under the gag order thing. What's the difference between you can say some stuff not under a gag order versus what you just kind of referenced there with, I really can't. Can you help us understand that? Because I have a hard time wrapping my head around maybe the severity and the difference in those two statements.
Look, if I'm Alex Jones, I can go on and I can say anything I want about anybody I want, anytime I want. And then sometime I might get sued for $1 billion over the Sandy Hook thing, but he continues to do it, right? Because there is a legal standard where you, Bertie, can say certain things, and you're not a guy with my experience that just wrote a book that's going to be on a shelf for 100 years, right? Whether anybody reads it or not, it's still there, right? So there are legal guidelines on protections of what you say about somebody. Like if you go out and say something about Donald Trump or Joe Biden or some politician, you can call them anything you want. They're public figures. You have an opinion. You can say it. If you say, I think so-and-so committed this crime, that's a whole different story.
Right.
That's a very different story. And that's it. It's not that there's a gag order. It's not that there is, I'm saying, I've seen flying saucers, but I can't tell you about them. It's not one of those things. It is I, as a responsible person, that I hope you believe some things I say. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But from the things I've seen, if I come out and make wild accusations, you're going to say, this guy's a fucking nut, right? And I want to avoid that.
Maybe.
Well, but there's a difference between doing a podcast, which is great in a million different ways, and saying something responsible or irresponsible. So as the person I would hope you would want an author to be, I would hope you would want some discretion in what you can and cannot say about something that I don't have proof. Nobody else in this case was accused of a crime. Nobody else in this case was named as a suspect in this crime. And nobody but Bryan Kohberger was convicted of the crime, right? I can't argue with any of those things. I can say there are holes in all of this narrative, and let's look at those holes. You can think those things. You can look at the information I provided, and you can look further, and I encourage that. But I can't come out and say, I think these things, because who gives a damn? This is the business. The justice is the business of lawyers and courts. So that's why I don't say these things. It's not that I don't have any opinions. Of course. My opinions don't matter.
Well, it goes back to what Dr. Turvey told me on the phone. We don't breathe the same air when it comes to commenting our opinions on certain topics. And
he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Look, I embrace what you do. I think it's fantastic. I think you shed light on things. You ask great questions. You have followers that pop up. It generates discussion. All of that is fantastic. But that's not the way the world works in terms of the law, right? We don't want to believe that somebody could go on your show and say, I think so-and-so did it, and then the whole world goes after them. We don't want that. It could be me, it could be you, it could be anybody. We want a system that makes sense, and that's what I'm trying to say. I'll answer all the questions I can, but I'm not going to say what I believe, theories.
And I will go through. I'm going to start. And don't feel, and this is no disrespect to anybody that asked a question. Just understand that there are a lot, and they're piling up, and I encourage them to be a lot. And Chris,
I'll try to be as quick as I can to get through them a lot.
Okay, so I'm just going to go down the line. So Beyond Reasonable Doubt, thank you so much. Said Beehive tonight. Be on our best behavior in the chat. Jules, thank you for the super chat. Said, Chris, what did Maddie say to Adam? Were the murders live streamed, and did Dylan send out images of victims from Snapchat? Dylan is totally hiding stuff. Kind of goes back to
that's not one question. That's a lot. Let's go through it. Okay. I don't know what Maddie said to Adam, and nobody does. It's not documented anywhere that I could find anywhere. Were the murders live streamed? No. And did Dylan send out images of victims from Snapchat? And the answer is no.
How much what did Maddie tell Adam, quote, just, again, pour fire on, or
it's huge.
It's
that's a great question. Jules, N2M, whatever else. I mean, well done. Well done. Something happened at the corner club. We know little bits about it. I know more about it. I have not seen a report anywhere that anybody's divulged what Maddie said to Adam. I have strong ideas about what it would be because I know other things that you don't, but I do not know.
Moving on, Boomer said, welcome to the Hive, Chris. We do things a little different here. We think critically. Let's fucking go.
How much do I fucking love Boomer Soniac?
Boomer's fucking
That's my
awesome.
kind of human being right there. Yeah,
love
critically.
That, Boomer.
And let's fucking, yes, I love that. I love that. Yes.
That's awesome. Let's get some LFG emojis going in the chat, Hive. That's awesome. Thank you, Boomer. And Natasha Hill said, what do you think about Brent Kopaka? That's obviously a name that has been brought up.
Wow.
Bryan Kohberger's father.
This is the only thing I can say. What is that? Natasha Hill? Natasha Hill 5332. What I'll say is this, that this book is missing 25 pages because I wrote for 25 pages about
this one
people. What's that?
Your book's missing 25 pages?
My book is missing 25 pages that were cut out because I answered those questions and they said I couldn't.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Listen, there is so much, guys, I'll tell you right now, just to give you an idea of how hard it is to do a book like this, there is a person of interest who became a suspect in this that has never surfaced. And there was a woman who met a guy on a social media, like a dating site, and got to know this guy. And I have everything, screenshots of all the communications, photos of him playing golf, all this stuff. And you can't comprehend what a bad guy this is, right? At least maybe it was a fantasy. Maybe it was some kind of a role play in some kind of romantic thing. But this guy is saying, I was on vacation and I had this girl over and I raped her and I killed her and I ate her for barbecue. And they're going back and forth about these things. Police had so many crazy things going on. You could go on. I don't want to exaggerate again, but I'm saying dozens of things like this that are so far out there that they defy description. So I'm not going to say anything about Brent or if I've heard of him or anything else, but there are so many people that came up during this course of this investigation. The Moscow Police Department did an extraordinary job running out every conceivable lead. Nobody will ever see it, but right on. They did a phenomenal job running it out. Yeah, they did. So sorry, I can't answer that specific question, but I do know the answer.
That's crazy. I cannot believe that. Thank you, Katie, for the Hive Plus and Discord Dog. Shout out to my mods gifting 10 Hive Plus memberships.
Got a lot of nice people on this thing, huh?
Oh, the Hive is the best. I will take the Hive against anybody as far as any other YouTube chat. Same with the moderators.
Yeah, I love it, man.
Hopefully they feel the same way about the host.
Well, I can see why, man. You're a very engaging guy. I really enjoy talking to you. What's this one?
So this is from CGE3333. Thank you for the big super chat. Says, has Chris seen Only Available, Not Available's content? If so, what are your thoughts?
Is that a name of a show, Only Available? Is that a...
It's a TikTok profile, and I don't think anybody really knows his identity. He has the same format for all of his videos, and he really picks up on some interesting things, sound bites. He connects a lot of dots, kind of this person knows that person. And I think really the question is just, have you heard of them?
No, I have not. But, you know, to be fair, guys, I lived in Asia for quite a lot of my life. And while I was there, you know, whatever, I had a surf shop in Bali, right? So if I'm surfing in Bali every day, I wasn't getting into social media when that was a big thing. So when I got back to the States, I said, I never got into social media. I have no social media. And I do that by choice. People would say, what kind of freak doesn't have social media? And the answer is because I can, right? I choose not to engage. So many of these things that you ask me about, I don't know because I don't know that. It's not me. So I don't know only available. Might be the most famous person in the world. I apologize. I don't know that content.
But you knew about the Hive, and I'll take it.
I knew about the Hive because I do watch YouTube and I do watch podcasts and there's a lot of good stuff.
Beyond reasonable doubt, said Chris, do you think that the WSU lawsuit will reveal any information we don't already have?
No, I don't. And there's a very good, great question. These lawsuits are flying around. But the reason I don't is because it is such, I'm not a lawyer. Many FBI agents are lawyers. I'm not a lawyer. But it is so difficult to imagine that going to trial. I can only foresee that there'll be a settlement. Like Washington State doesn't want to go to trial for a wrongful death case like this. Civil things like this are so convoluted. They're so difficult. And getting back to statistics, statistically, there's a very high probability that it'll go to settlement. I don't know what the settlement will be, and I don't know which end will get the settlement, but the answer is no, I do not.
You were just on the Custody Queen show, I believe. They said the same thing. I've broken down the WSU lawsuit kind of in the beginning when it first
I don't
broke.
get it. I don't get it. Look, I'll say this right now. Anybody can sue anybody, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you're going to win, number one. Second of all, you could spend $1 million suing somebody for $100,000 and you're still out $900,000, right? So it's very easy to sue somebody. It's not as easy to win.
Very true. Very true. Crop Duster 22. It's one of my favorite usernames, Chris, in the Hive. Crop Duster 22 said in several police. Dude, we have so many funny ones. We have Mouth of the South. That's another one of my
love it. Crop Duster. I don't think he's 22.
So in several police frat interviews, they asked, do you know anyone involved in a crash? Chris, what have you seen or heard regarding this question?
Okay, a crash, how so? Like a crash
of
an automobile sometime around it?
Yeah.
I don't know what that in several police frat interviews. I mean, I think I've seen most of the frat and sorority interviews, and there were an awful lot of them. Most of them were like, do you know anything about it? And no, see you later, right? I don't know what that refers to. I don't know of a crash involving students that night. No, I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
Meaning I haven't seen anything about it.
And Hive, I'm asking for some grace as far as the questions. I obviously could respond, and Chris and I could talk about every one of these questions for a handful of minutes, but I'm going to continue through making sure that I get to everybody's questions.
I'll be as quick as I can.
And KS Jess and Art, thank you for the super chat, said, Birdie, what does Chris think about Homeland Security and marshals being involved? Why? This is a question that I have too, and I'm going to refer to what many people refer to the Cowboys. It was caught on one of the mainstream media cameras where a woman's interviewing. They got the whole house lit up, and the guys in the cowboy hats walk out and they get into the black minivan. You familiar with that?
No, I'm not. I don't.
Okay.
I've never seen anything that indicates the marshals or Homeland Security were involved in the investigation. Does that mean they weren't? No. It means that they never entered into the evidence process. So okay. I've never heard that either. I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Freedom Warrior 9645. Thank you for the super sticker. Just a donation. That's amazing. And Josh Sky 6252 said, how do you reconcile Ann Taylor's decision to guide the defendant toward a guilty plea with the contention the evidentiary record permits anyone with zero legal training to establish reasonable doubt? That is worded very well. And I'm curious what you think. How does one see all of this and let them plea?
Well, I don't want to say I know these things, but I'm not going to tell you. So I'll say I know this, and I'll tell you. How's that?
Okay,
right?
I love
maybe
that.
Maybe let's get some super stickers for you, man. You know what I'm saying? And the answer is you should ask Dr. Turvey about this, because Dr. Turvey, the only two people know, Bryan Kohberger and his defense attorney, and he asked her. And he may have told you that because he talks fairly freely about it. But I've heard from her own mouth why it happened, how it happened. And in the basics, and I talk about this in the book a little bit, but her basics were her contention that Bryan Kohberger saw every document that was ever filed. He had access to everything. and that he and he alone made the decision to plead guilty. However, he asked her specifically if she had any information that we don't know about, and her answer was no, meaning that there's no other information, no other evidence that we don't know about, and he changed his mind. So I think at some point Ann Taylor is going to have to, I think maybe she'll want to go on these shows and say, these people need to shut up. This is why I did this, this, and this. But I've heard her say it with her, I've heard her own words. Yeah.
Wow. So we wondered for a while if Bryan actually was actively engaged in looking through his files. So thank you for sharing.
He was. But according to his defense attorney, there is no more information that we don't know about. I mean, there's not a smoking gun that they were going to drop at trial that we don't know about. And that's important. That's very important.
That is important. Thank you for sharing that. And 2 a.m. is a witch hour. Thank you for the super chat saying, we love you, Birdie. Well, I love you guys too. And I appreciate everybody that is tuning in, hitting like, hitting subscribe, and just in general being here. I love hanging out with you guys every evening, and I really appreciate it. Christy Adkins. Wow. That it gets the GOAT award. $50 super chat said,
dang, man, you're bringing it in. You're raking it in.
What's
she hanging on to? Is she a farm girl? What's that thing? Is that a door or something?
What is that?
I don't know.
It looks like.
I want to know. Somebody answer my questions, for goodness sake.
Yeah, we should have that. We should have you get to ask us questions at the end of this.
I should ask questions. What is that? Is that a door? I like the hat. Okay, I'm sorry. I've been waiting all day for this. Thank you for the hard work. It was such a breath of fresh air. This, Brady, I have to finish on replay. Oh, there's no question. She just sent you $50.
That's amazing.
How wonderful is she, man? Put her in a Hall of Fame.
I will. I need to.
Yeah.
Christy, hopefully when you wake up in the morning after a good night's rest, you see this, and we really, really appreciate it. Naria 205, hopefully I said that right. Naria 205 said, smash the like button. Birdie deserves it for this one.
I got to say, Naria 205, I'm an Anglophile. I've lived in London 2 different times in my life. Rock on Brits.
Love it. I love it. And we have a lot of people tuning in from all over the world. Hive, if you don't mind, type out where everybody is tuning in from right now, and then in the comments during
Let's
the replay,
play a game.
we'll be able to see.
Type in where you are right now, and I'll tell you if I've ever lived there or spent any time there.
The chat's going to fly. So you got to keep your
Let me have it. I mean,
are you able to see the comments right now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, so we have Scotland.
Yeah, all the states, and Oxford. Yeah, I'm a big Faulkner fan. Washington, yes, yeah, all of those. Texas, yeah, Maine. I grew up in New Hampshire. I got a great story about my Uncle Mike knocking a guy's teeth out in Oxford, Maine. New Zealand, I lived in, New Zealand many times. Vermont, I grew up on the border next to Norwich, Vermont. Charlotte, I spent 2 years writing a book in Charlotte, South Carolina, Charleston. Missouri, I'm in Missouri now. I live in Missouri now. I went to college in upstate New York. I have a ranch in Montana, south of Livingston in the West Boulder Valley. Let's see, what else? Vegas, love it, hate it at the same time. Idaho.
South Africa?
For another thing. I don't care for Pittsburgh as much, but I love the Steelers. Gatlinburg, yeah, I love Gatlinburg.
Wow.
Belgium, yes. Let's see. Buffalo, yeah, but, snow. Go Bills. I like the Bills. If my Chiefs
Bills
don't
Mafia?
win, I like the Bills. UK all day long. Bar Harbor, my vacation spot when I was a kid. Next book I'm writing about Oklahoma. Mars, I haven't visited yet. Hike the Pacific Coast Trail, South Australia, yeah. Lots of time in Perth. Florida, yeah. FBI over there, like, what? Yeah. There's Zimbabwe, yes. I'll tell you, the only country I ever walked into was Zimbabwe.
Really?
Let's see. New Haven, yeah. These are easy. Give me something hard, like Somalia and war zones, Sudan, places like that. Kansas City, go Chiefs. Germany, many stories there.
Portugal?
What?
Portugal?
Oh, yeah, I'm moving to Portugal. Well, I'm not moving, but I'm gonna get a place and spend 6 months in Portugal.
I don't know how to say this. You kind of look like a guy that would live in Portugal. I don't know why, but
I
after
don't
you
know
said
what
that,
I look
it
like,
makes
man.
sense.
I was hoping you had a filter that could make me look different on your podcast, but go Saints. Yeah.
Wow.
That's not a location, but go Saints. Yeah, Red Hawk. Alabama, Roll Tide. Yeah, I love Bama. It's my number one favorite college football team. Sri Lanka, yes.
Sri Lanka.
Compton. I was there for the Rodney King riots. That's how old I am. I actually got some business in Compton back in the day. Peru, yes. Georgia, the country. A lot of time in Tbilisi, Georgia. Love it. Anyway, that's fun. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time in a lot of different places, but has nothing to do with this case, and I'm sure that people don't care.
Well, I think that's cool. Just that everybody just typed that all out. So thank you.
I do
everybody
too,
who
guys.
did that.
I can't tell you how much I'm learning about this and how much I appreciate the really great, insightful, give a shit people I'm meeting. And
I love that.
I'm really grateful for it. I really am.
We will have you back anytime. And Hot Girl Bummer did ask, "Are you doing a book signing?"
I would agree with that. Can I comment on on her name?
Yeah, Hot Girls.
I mean, what the heck, man?
Hot Girl
Okay.
Bummer said,
I don't think I can comment, but if I did, it would be great name. Appropriate name. Am I doing a book tour? Nobody really does book tours anymore. Back in the old days, I would do book tours and travel around the country. Nobody does them anymore. There's no bookstores. There's Barnes and Noble. And
she just gave us $100. Thank you, Bertie, Mr. Whitcomb.
Kapow, Bertie. Kapow. I'm telling you, it's well worth it. Leave that up there for a while, will you?
Wow.
Rock on.
Unbelievable, Hot Girl Bummer.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Book signings they're not a thing anymore,
Oh, they're not.
unfortunately. I never liked them anyway.
Now you go on podcasts like The Hive. It's better.
I want to come on the Hive. I want to be part of the Hive. You got to give me a screen name or something, all right?
Hive, we can come up with a screen name for you. That's epic.
Okay.
Thank you, Hot Girl Bummer, for that.
By the way, since that just came up, who the hell is that guy? I mean, I look like, a poorly polished turd, but who is that guy in that picture? That's not me.
It came up. You were in a photo.
Wow.
It could also just be the fact that I use a thumbnail generator and sometimes it warps people.
Yeah.
So
I mean, who cares?
That's on me, dude. I'm so sorry.
No, dude, I don't care. It looks better than me anyways, but okay, what more questions? Hit me with
Okay,
something
all right.
else.
All right. More questions. Here we go.
Sorry,
Here
I'm
we go.
getting a little, I think this is
You've
my
done a lot.
7th hour today, so forgive me, but I'm having a little fun now, so,
Yep, I get it. Mama D3 says, Bertie, please ask Chris about the spare room.
Okay, a lot of things about the spare room. One, there was a bracelet found on the ground on the floor. So the question is, where were Dylan and Bethany that night, right? In their room. Supposedly walked down, went to bed, fell asleep, and never left the room, even to go to the bathroom. The bathroom that had no toilet paper, no toothpaste, no makeup, no towels, no nothing. Completely barren, whether or not it was sterilized, right? So the question is, look at Bethany's bed. The chair, as police walked in with the body cam, was full of clothing. Yeah, no toilet paper. Now go to the sink if you've got the sink. Okay, yeah, stop right there. Does anything ring a bell there? I mean, there's nothing of any kind.
There's nothing over here at all.
There's no towels in the rack. There's nothing in the trash can. There's no toilet paper. Anyways, that's another thing. But that brings us to the empty room. What happened for 8 hours downstairs that night? And this is not going to the veracity of what they told us. It is the spare bedroom. Police found a broken woman's bracelet.
That's right.
In the middle of the floor, picked it up, and they placed it on the counter. When it's placed on the counter, Dr. Turvey believes, I'm not going to say it, that I do necessarily, that is stained with blood. And I found an evidence report that said that a bracelet was found, but not where or which bracelet. But that bracelet's important. How did a broken woman's bracelet get in the middle of that floor? I would want to know that. Golf clubs, the tailored golf clubs in the corner were a source of speculation for many people. A lot of people think somebody used a golf club in the commission of these crimes. Nobody found out. There's no inventory of the clubs. I've got pictures, but you can't really count and see if it's missing a 9-iron or something like that. So that's another thing. The third thing is, I'm not going to go, I go into detail a little bit in the book, but property was taken from the bedroom and given back as personal property, and it was seized by Ann Taylor's office long after the fact, and the evidence in the stuff that was in that box is pretty sketchy. That room is important, and I think moving forward as we generate different discussions, there'll be an awful lot of talk you hear about that spare bedroom.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
absolutely.
Well, that is exciting and encouraging to hear. I'm going to kind of segue right into this comment from Starla Berg, or Star LaBerge?
LaBerge.
LaBerge.
It's Star LaBerge, right? Star LaBerge.
LaBerge is the word?
Like Madame Lafarge.
You sound like Anchorman. Like
was that what
Ron
was that?
Burgundy.
No, he's a very famous novel character. What was Bethany's exculpatory evidence? Great question. I've been asked that question before. I've never seen anything that indicates that she had exculpatory evidence. Well, let's go back. Exculpatory evidence is something that Bethany says, offers, or delivers that would somehow have damaged the prosecution case against Bryan Kohberger. I've seen nothing of any kind ever in any way where Bethany offers information that would have helped Bryan Kohberger at trial. I've never seen that. I'm not saying it's not there. I don't know what that would be.
You haven't
I've never seen
it.
anything. Right.
Interesting. Yeah, that's been a big source.
It's
of
a common
speculation.
question. I just don't know the basis for that question because there's nothing I've ever seen that indicates that's the case. I know the defense didn't find it. So,
well, and I do know that a lot of people have said, well, why is Bethany fighting a subpoena to come back if she really doesn't know anything, right? And her lawyering up, and nonetheless, again, we could talk for a long time about that. But you're saying you are not aware of the exculpatory evidence.
No, I think I'll say this because I put it in the book. But in the last interview with Bethany, this was after Bryan Kohberger had been charged. This was after he was arrested, right? They go back and interview her, and the police ask Bethany why Dylan won't respond to them trying to get a hold of her. And Dylan Mortensen's attorney issued a statement saying Dylan had never seen Bryan Kohberger before, but would not talk to police. So what they said and why they said it, what they did not say and why they did not say it is entirely up to them, right? Some people don't want to talk to cops. I don't blame them, right? I don't know why, but I do know in all those conversations, to the best of my knowledge, based on what I've seen, I don't know what people are talking about with the exculpatory evidence. I know it's a thing. I don't know what the thing is.
Okay, I see. Mobile here, $99 super chat. Wow.
Wait, no way. Mobile
Dude,
here,
$99.99,
man. You're buying
Love that. I love that. Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, if you would be willing to, I will fly to Missouri or wherever you said you were. I will buy all the drinks you need to start spilling the beans on this thing. I will take
I've
one.
spilled a lot of beans, man.
Yeah,
I've spilled a lot of beans.
You have.
Yeah.
Who
so
was
the
the
answer
target?
is Kaylee. The answer is Kaylee.
No doubt, unequivocally in your mind.
Unequivocally. Kaylee Goncalves suffered wounds that were different in character and severity than anybody else in that house. And she was directly adjacent to Maddie Mogan. She was choked to the point of petechia, asphyxiated. I'm not saying choked, she was asphyxiated, which is a two-hand struggle. She was, well, it implies a restriction of blood vessels and bursting of blood vessels. So there was a stricture issue, which is hands-on. Then she was suffered severe blunt force trauma. Then she was killed with edged weapons. Nobody else suffered the extent, the severity, or the character of the wounds she suffered.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I just saw somebody say that I accidentally didn't read their super chat if it popped up. But as I'm looking for that, the custody queens, Kristen, thank you for the super chat. Said, thank you, Chris, for having the guts to share how messy, raw, and broken the plea really was.
How much do I love
Chris.
those brilliant attorneys? I've got to say, I did them before. They're so smart and they're so articulate and they're so incisive in the way they look at this. I can't thank you guys enough that I get to meet you and that I get to talk to you. So thank you.
I would echo that. I always love getting to collaborate with the custody queens. It's been great.
They're so smart.
Yeah, great conversation always with them. And they're able to apply their experience from the real world to this case, which is always
yes,
very,
exactly.
very helpful.
They have the real world experience as well. Yeah.
Okay, I just saw another one, or I just saw one that had a good question as well.
First, well, I'm reading them out of there were frats and cartels. Definitely not the cartels, but there was a lot of activity at frats. So I'm not going to get into the frat thing. Cartels, no. Just saw a side question.
Oh, this is a good point. Thank you, Crown.
Her face was unrecognizable. Yes, that's correct.
Chris didn't you want to speak about an SUV?
Yeah, I did, but I think people were taking hits and saying, "Well, I've already seen this before." Well, I challenge you to talk to 10 different people for a grand total of 20 hours and not hit the same thing. But yeah, guys, what's going to happen moving forward, I think, is I would encourage people to look at the Linda Lane video, the 1112 video, and chase it out till 6:30 in the morning because this SUV leaves Linda Lane. It goes past the house. It's gone for 4 minutes. This is right after the car.
Okay. Thank you for that insight. And redactivities, and I'm gonna couple this question. Redactivities, thank you so much. So do you think more information will ever become publicly available? Thank you, Christopher and Birdie. And I'm gonna segue Nomadic Duckmans onto there with the wounds you saw. Could you ever imagine females committing this crime? So kind of that, I would consider that would be additional public information.
Yeah, I would say both. Outstanding questions. Yes, I think a tremendous amount's going to come out, because I think Dr. Turvey's going to talk about it. I don't know this to be the case, but I've been told that a major platform is doing a documentary based on law enforcement officers involved in this thing. And I know that they don't all agree. I think people would say I'm taking shots at the police, and that's not the case. I think many of the police believe in many of the things that I've brought up. And that'll come out. I think we're going to see, my hope, my personal selfish hope is that this will enable people to come forth in this and in other cases that you talk about on the Hive, right? Mm-hmm. I think this will encourage people to come out and say, look, let's not just talk about these things as theories and have all these crazy Snapchat things or whatever else. Let's look at these things realistically and let's solve some of these crimes. Yes, more evidence is coming out. And what was the other one about the...
from what you've seen on the wounds, could any of them have been committed by a female?
I'll say it only for this reason. My life has been violent. I've lived in wars, and the part of my life that you don't know was I've seen everything, and I've seen everything committed by kids and women, men, old, young, different colors, different places in the world. Women can do the same thing men do, and maybe more vicious. Yes.
Wow. That is interesting. Nina Love said, many updates on Bryan Kohberger, and can anybody question or interview him? Thank you, Birdie, as always. And Chris, thank you for your time and pieces to the puzzle we've been missing.
Well, anybody can interview him. I chose not to because I didn't want to diminish. I didn't want to taint one way or another, the way I looked at his involvement or his plea or whatever else. There's nothing he was going to tell me that he didn't tell anybody else, which is zero, right? But yeah, anybody could apply to, if he'll agree to talk to you, just go and interview him in prison. I have chosen not to. If he reached out to me and wanted to talk to me for whatever reason, or his family, I would be very happy to do that. I haven't chased it.
Were there tunnels underneath the house? Shayla asks. No. Okay.
Was there another camera that you don't know about? Yes. Are there other
cameras know about?
That you don't? Yeah, there's plenty. There's all kinds of surveillance video shot that doesn't necessarily show anything, but there are many surveillance cameras. They looked at every surveillance camera within miles and miles and miles, and there's lots of video that shows nothing, right? So yes, there is. Oh. Does it show anything? No.
Oh, I thought you were saying that there's one that would pertain closer to the house, is how I was interpreting that.
Well, I will say that's also true because I have all the video that shows the white car in various places, and I don't think that's been released.
Holy cow. Wow, I did not know that. So, well, I obviously Hive will be debriefing tomorrow. So I'll have to remember to comment on that just in, again, in the efficiency of getting through the questions. And
well,
Ronnie,
in trying to figure out the movements for that white car, ostensibly Bryan Kohberger's car, and trying to put together what they could identify from the car, they got video from many, many, many different places, and they pieced it all together, saying we saw a white car in this house video, on a garage video, on a store video, whatever else. So that exists. I believe that's never been released.
thank you for sharing that. I did not know that. Rev Bev, Kaylee was begged to come back by Dylan. Any ulterior motive there? I know you mentioned that in your book as far as the date to the Pi-Fi formal.
Oh yeah, that's another thing that that's a big thing too. Kaylee came down. Everybody knows she wasn't there. She came down for the weekend, and she was, by all accounts, including Dylan's date for the formal. They went to the formal for a very, very short period of time and left separately. I don't know if that means anything, but that's the case.
Okay, here's one. Ronnie Van Halen said, Chris, I want to give you a rest from the Idaho 4 questions. Who's your favorite guitarist?
How much do I love Ronnie Van Halen? I got to say Ronnie Van Zant. Well, Ronnie Van Zant didn't play guitar, but I got to say Van Halen because rock on. But the answer to that really is Jimmy Page. Say whatever you want. It's not just his dexterity. I love them all. I love them. Eric Johnson, Satchmo, Steve Vai, Andro Segovia, Mancuso. I love them all, right? They're all fantastic. But nobody in my mind, guitar playing is like this. I got some nice guitars over there for anybody that's into guitars and stuff like that. And these are all nice instruments.
You got a lot of them. Jeez.
Oh, well, this is a tiny, tiny fraction of them. But the answer is that playing guitar is one thing. Writing that shit's another thing. Jimmy Page wrote some of the most iconic guitar riffs ever imagined, and he played them. So that's the answer, Jimmy Page.
Is it true Ethan was cheating on Xana? You mentioned an Erica in the book.
That's a tough question because the records show that there was a lot going on in that house. I'll say that right now. But no, I can't say that Ethan was cheating on her or that she or anybody else was cheating on anybody else. No, I do not say that. But I do say college students in general, people at that stage in life in general, have a lot of different interactions. And that's just life. It doesn't mean anything bad. That's just life. So cheating, no, I don't say that.
Shoot, where did that one go? Because here we go. No, I will ask that one in a second. It goes right here. So Sassy Sister Sledge said, where do we go from here now that the book is done? How do we move the needle forward with respect to this case? What is Ethan and Xana's timeline that night? So I don't know if you want to start with the Ethan and Xana part, just because I just asked.
I'll just say Sassy Sister Sledge, and how much do I love Sister Sledge, right? Kiki Kiki Yaya Kia or whatever we're gonna say to that. But I don't know where we go from here. I'm hoping, because we live in the golden age of inquiry, right? You can do things on this podcast that I couldn't do. You know how to bring these people together. My hope, because I'm going to start a thing of my own at some point, my hope is to recruit an army that would tune in, and I would assign them to teams and squads, and we'd work individual cases. So we introduce a case, we bring teams of people together, we send them out to find what we've done here, and we consolidate with rules and with training. People could come on and they could talk to Turvey about blood spatter, or they could talk to your person about whatever. And we start giving people access to real information. Like, I'm not knocking any of the people that go on cable television with these shows, but I don't care about a soft focus lens and some cello music. I want to know what happened. And
Amen.
The people that I'm seeing pop up in your feed, I'm blown away with the questions, with their curiosity, with their attention. And that's what I want. That's what I want with this case. I want people to get involved, ask questions, and want facts and truth, not some theories about, how you feel about Tupperware parties or something. I mean, stupid stuff.
Okay, well, how about this? The Hive can be your first business unit in that business. So Hive, type of 1 if you'll enlist. I'll type of 1 right now. That would be awesome.
Don't we all want to join together and have fun solving crimes? Right?
I think that would go
I think
well.
a lot of people do.
I think that would go really well, and you should absolutely do that. I don't know why nobody has taken advantage of these, what people will call armchair detectives, right? Internet sleuths. Am I cutting out a little bit?
I could put together one podcast for the Hive with 10 of the most fascinating people you've ever met in your life that have worked these crimes all their lives, and they tell you the truth about various things, most people don't even know that, the expertise out there. Many of the people watching this right now are remarkable. They're remarkably bright. They're remarkably insightful. They're remarkably experienced. We just don't know who they are. I just see a bunch of names pop up. I can tell you there's a hell of a lot of people that the remarkable people that are watching this now. So what do I want? I want you guys to get involved. I want you guys to ask questions, learn. Let's talk about it. That's what I want.
There was a comment that flew by. This wasn't a super chat, but there was a comment that flew by that said, okay, so if we don't have access to this stuff and you're saying, maybe you can't say it for the reasons that you gave, right? For just not getting sued and all that stuff. How should we go about this then? We don't have access to unredacted stuff. I mean, is it interviews? Is it FOIAs? Like, what do we do?
Listen, I'm how do I say this? Being an FBI agent, I always said, I was sworn to protect the Constitution, not give up any of my rights within the Constitution. And I would say that journalists typically go through FOIA requests because there are rules on what they can print and what they can't reprint, and because that's what right? But if you look at the history, if you look at the last 26 years, just this century, right? You look at the last 26 years and look at what you've learned in news reports from government submissions, and look at what you've gotten from people that found it on their own. I think there's a big difference. If American society sits back and goes, I'm going to wait for a journalist to file a FOIA request about anything, UFOs, the Epstein files, anything else, is it enough that we depend on the government to tell us about the Epstein files? Seriously? Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
Don't get me started on this, Chris.
Right. But I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
At what point do we just say, I want to find out? I don't want to report on what it looks like down the street. I want to go look. And that's what I've done here. Is it easy? No. It's hard. It's really hard, but that doesn't mean you don't do it.
If you want to start it, hit me up. I'm serious. I would love to help you out and do that. I really would.
I'll talk to you about it. That's what I want. I want to recruit an army of like-minded sleuths.
It's a serious offer, as serious as I could be. I would love to. And Grammy Tammy says, start a page. We will join. No offense to your wife, but you are very handsome.
Okay, you got liar, pants on fire. I mean, I think there was probably a time in my life when I was maybe 17 or 18 years old where I could get a date. But in deference, no, it's terrible. I want to, anytime we do a podcast from now on, I'm going to demand a filter.
You're going to demand a filter on you?
Yeah, you got to make me look different. Right? You probably got some soft focus lens that can like airbrush me out, right? A little bit.
I don't think I could. Maybe here. I won't try right now. But next time.
Come on, I'm kidding, man. I don't expect you to, but I would want one. But anyways,
I'm looking for Verity Lee. She said that I accidentally clicked over it. There's a lot in here, so hang on. Let me just go back through these real quickly. Okay, so I don't see it there.
Somebody said, yeah, give him a full glam filter. Right on. Give me a full glam filter.
I'm trying to see. As I'm looking, so Chatty Carras
Surfers stay young forever. Rock on. I had a surf shop in Bali, lived there on the ocean, and yes, surfers rock on. Yes.
Chris, Chatty has a question up on the screen, and that is, if Murphy had blood on him, was rinsed, then moved around wet, shaking could have dispersed the diluted blood and maybe explain the transfer? Thoughts on that?
Great question. He was not. There was no dud. It was tested. The hair was tested. Murphy never had any blood on him. There would have been an interaction in the crime scene where you would have seen, the dog going in the paws and going from there. So I love this thinking, Chatty Carras. I love this thinking because it's logical, it's forensic, and it's plausible. In this particular case, that didn't happen.
And just so Verity Leanne, this is the only super chat that I see in the log.
What's that mean? You accidentally didn't read my SC at Flash. So what's that mean?
Like she said the super chat, but I don't see it in the log, and I just have scrolled through.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
So I apologize.
I love those pounds, man. I love that pound sign. Go Brits. I love it.
Okay, this is a good question. This is a good question. I don't know if you're going to know the answer for this. Hey, Chris, if you got to get going, you can tell me to shut up.
Guys,
by the way,
you shut it down. I love this stuff. I'm meeting wonderful people. I love it. I love talking to you guys.
Okay. So let's be honest. 555, thank you for the super chat, said, if it was the same attacker, how is it that Kaylee and Maddie's blood wasn't mixed at all with Xana and Ethan's? It feels like two completely separate scenes. Now, I'll bite my tongue. You go ahead.
Right on. Let's be honest. 555. Right on.
Two separate scenes. Okay. All righty. I like the crypticness, if that's what that was.
No cryptic. No cryptic. Here's the deal. Maddie and Kaylee's blood and nobody else's was found in the third floor bedroom. Xana's and Ethan's blood and nobody else's was found in the second floor bedroom. Okay? Stay with me, right?
Yep.
Kaylee's and Maddie's and Xana's and Ethan's blood were all found in the common areas of the second floor. So how did that happen? How did the blood get tracked from the third floor across the common areas of the second floor and not into the second floor bedroom, but that blood got tracked outside? It's a great question. It's a great question. Very insightful.
Do you know the answer?
I think I do. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I do. I think I do.
Wow. Okay. And shout out to one of my mods for just texting me this. So, Verity Leanne, we found your super chat. What can we do now to get the truth with the untested and unreleased info? What can the public do to get further? I kind of had asked a different question of that, but just to reiterate, Chris, I mean, what do you recommend if you were in our shoes right now? What would you do?
I'd get Turvey on here and start asking some of these questions.
Put Chris a good word in.
Talk about what's that?
So put a good word in for the Hive.
Oh, I will. I'll definitely put in a good word for the Hive. What I think is going to happen, and I think this is going to suck. This is all fun and games sitting here talking to you right now, but there's a lot of people that are not going to be very happy about me saying these things in a book, and it's not. I know that's where it's going. But the reason I'm willing to suffer that indignity is because I believe that I've broken the dam. I believe that I hope that I've given all of you and all the other people that are paying attention to this thing a sense that this is how you do it. You just go find the information, you talk about it, and you open it up. And you got to break a couple eggs. But none of this shit's easy. It's not easy. But you can do it. You can do it.
Here's how I would describe it, Chris. One of the things that I'm very appreciative of this book doing is that and I'm including a lot of people in the chat, we look into this with an obsessive eye, lunatics at times. Like it's very deep and detailed. We've gone through and theorized as much as we could. What I appreciate about this book is that for somebody that hasn't, and all that they've seen is also just Dateline and NBC and Amazon, I believe that anybody that believes that, your book does a really good job at ripping the Band-Aid off of all of that. And I think that it's
Thank you.
I really do.
Thank you.
As far, and for the people that have gone as far down all these rabbit holes, right? I mean, look, it is what it is. I mean, we have questions about what are in your book, but that's good. It's furthering the conversation. And I don't think that there's anybody in here that would argue that your book did not provide more pieces to the puzzle, which I'm sure, and myself included, are very grateful for, because we have a lot more to dig into now. And
thank you, Bertie. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So guys, I know I'm trying to get through everybody's. So Susie Hat said, any rumor about Jack D and Bethany hooking up?
I'll say genius question, but maybe not exactly that combo.
Whoa.
Not saying any more.
Mic drop.
But you just asked about rumors. You asked about rumors. You did not ask if I've seen evidence in a file.
Did you see evidence in the file?
No.
Okay. But you've heard rumors, maybe.
Yeah, but where do rumors come from, right? So good or bad or otherwise. But very interesting question. Very interesting question.
Lovely me. Thank you so much for the super chat. Said, remember, Hive, you do not overcome evil with more evil. You overcome it with good. Thank you for being good, Chris. You are a rad dude. So are you, Bertie. All the love. Well, thank you so much.
Man, I love me some Lovey Lime. Is it Love Lime? What a beautiful thing to say. Thank you, guys. I mean,
absolutely is.
I mean, the humanity that you guys bring out in this thing is blowing me away. Thank you. That's a very nice thing to say.
Yeah, and thank you for that nice compliment as well. Love and Other Habits. Jeez, I did it again. Love and Other Habits said, Bertie, phenomenal questions. Love you. Chris, I appreciate your expertise and candor. However, footage manipulation, fog lights, rug dealing, Eric Gower, parallel investigation, the blood at the Whites, and Murphy help.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Love and Other Habits. I'm with you. I can't, like I say, I could have written this book in 10 volumes. I mean, I could have written this book in 10 volumes. And it's already 430 pages. It's a lot. We've touched on a small part of the book. I mean, I haven't given up the book. I've just talked about individual elements of it. But there is so much, like the knife sheath. Nobody had talked about that before, the DNA and things that I talk about in the book. I so respect that question because there's so much we don't know. Even after looking at more than you have, there's so much I don't know.
Well, and that leads to Dunweiser. Thank you so much for the super chat, brother. Said, is some of the information that you haven't been able to answer in the book? And I think that, Chris, you just kind of did answer that where.
Yeah, and I'll be specific. Again, the process cut about 25 pages out of this book. And it's already long, but about 25 pages. But that 25 pages is the answer to the questions that you want to know. I wrote it out. I reasoned it, researched it, thought about it, wrote it, and they said, no, it's a step too far. Couldn't do it. Yes. Some of the information that I haven't been able to answer in the book, yes. A lot.
Blue-Eyed Candy, thank you for the super chat. Always great to see you. Said, your info is changing the narrative. If Kaylee was the target, Maddie Mogan is understandable. But why Ethan and Xana?
She saw him when he came down. She saw whoever the killers were did not expect to see Xana at the bottom of the stairs when they came down to leave the place. She was killed as a witness.
Okay.
And she ran into the bedroom. When she runs into the bedroom, you have to interact with Ethan. That's not my opinion. I think that is the broad narrative among everybody involved in this thing.
Thoughtarella, that's a hell of a username. Thoughtarella. Do you know what thought means by chance? Just curious.
Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. So yeah. Thoughtarella said, opinion, why such a hard fight to keep so much secret? That's kind of what I alluded to before too. What is it, about?
Well, two things. Great. Another great question. Holy shit, we did get all these smart people. I mean, really insightful questions. But I will say two things. One, there is a police culture that we all know. You watch it in crime shows, whatever. Us versus them. There's a psychology that takes over time. And it's because you feed a human being a constant diet of misery, and they're going to have a different posture when they get up and go to work every day. And that's a cop's life. It's a hard life. Dealing every day with misery is a hard life, right? So why so much to keep it? I don't think they're trying to keep it secret. I really don't think that law enforcement is trying to keep this secret. They've given up so much information. It's that they're trying to be cops. They're trying to keep the world safe. They're going out about their duties every day, and they come back at the end of the day, and they've got another 35 FOIA requests. And in my opinion, the only thing cops are covering up is your birthday and your address and your blood type and your social security number, because they don't want that stuff to go out. It's not fair to you. So, Thoughtarella, my answer is, great question, but I think it's simpler than you understand. I don't think that any police officer involved in this investigation, from the Moscow Police Department to Idaho State Police or the FBI, they're just trying to protect people who are not, innocent people who are not involved. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of names that I've read in various reports in this thing, and most of them are just somebody in the street, right? So why give up reports that somehow change their life? It's not fair to them. So are there secrets? Yes. Are we talking about important ones here? Yes. I think most of cops are doing, they're just trying to protect people. That's all. That's my answer.
Conspiraling said, have you seen hair fetish focused scenes in your career, or have an opinion with all the hair placed by the victims? And what does it say about the suspect?
Oh my God, where do you get these people? What a great question. And the answer is, it comes back to in my opinion, yes, I have, because I worked in the behavioral assessment unit for a while at Quantico, which is the profilers. I worked with them. I was not a profiler, no, but I worked in the critical incident response group with them. And I've worked with them a lot. So I do know what you're talking about. And I have seen many similar things. In this particular case, there's nothing that suggests that in any way. Those fetishes have specific mechanisms, and none of those mechanisms are suggested in any way. And because of the hand and the hair and the way, I think you go with Occam's razor. The most plausible explanation is, in this case, I think is the most accurate, which is pulled it out of somebody's head, I would think.
Buzznutter said, after the custody queen's birdie, someone buy Chris a drink for God's sakes. He's put in a full day of work.
Buzznutter. Thank you. I'm thinking right now, I think I might be in 9 hours. 9 hours.
That's incredible, man. That is really incredible.
I love every second of it. I love it. I love embracing you guys, meeting new people. I love the questions. I can't tell you this. I'm more energized for doing it than I would be if I hadn't. 100%. I'm grateful. Very, very grateful.
And that's encouraging to hear for people like us. So thank you.
Okay, here's another one. Shell shocked. What accessory after the fact look like in a case like this or abuse of a corpse? Abuse of a corpse is a separate charge. There's no reason to pile on with that. They charged Kohberger with burglary, essentially, right? The first of 5 counts was burglary. That's already tagging on something. He got 4 consecutive life sentences. He's never coming out, right? So abuse of a corpse is a charge. I think it's, it wouldn't have accomplished anything. Accessory after the fact, certainly anybody that was involved in a cleanup, or certainly anybody that was involved in taking things to and from the scene, or helping him or helping anybody else would have been accessory after the fact. In a case like this, I think accessory after the fact would have also been charged with murder. I think it would have been more than that. I would not be surprised if that comes back up.
Mobile here with another $100 super.
Look
chat.
at you, rich people out there passing around. I love it, Bertie.
I gotta stand. It's amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Double GOAT award, and I will ask this question, and I think it's one that we've all, we've asked you a couple times, but just to really drill down on it, Chris, if Kaylee is the target, why even take the other 3? Why not get her on the way home or just another time? That's a good question. Why do it at the house?
Okay. I know the answer to this. I'm not sure how much I can say.
Say as much as you possibly can, please.
Let's say, hypothetically speaking, I'm going to be very, very careful about this. Let's look at the mechanism of the crime. Sexual assault was not the motive. Burglary, robbery was not the motive. The manifestation of injuries behaviorally and forensically suggest rage and overkill, that the wounds far exceeded what it would have taken to kill them, right? And you have to look discreetly at Kaylee and Maddie because those wounds, that whole scene was very different than Ethan and Xana. They're not in the same conversation. So the question is, why there? And you take rage motivated by emotion, and you compile that with a place where somebody motivated by emotion would find that person. They're not going to do it in the street in the middle of the afternoon. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that as clear as I can be?
I think that I'm picking up what you're putting down.
What I'm saying is somebody didn't like her and knew where she was. And that's, look, I'm not talking out of school, and I'm not saying anything that other people haven't said. Many, many people have said the same thing. You cannot look at the 3 mechanisms of injuries, the asphyxiation, the blunt force trauma, the disfiguring blunt force trauma that took away her entire identity, her entire appearance, and the nature of the wounds and the wounds that they suffered post-mortem. You cannot look at those things and say somebody just snuck into the house to murder them. It's easy to kill somebody. It's not easy to take the time and the rage. I'll say this, guys. This is disgusting. It's horrific. And I'm a guy I've spent my adult life in stuff like this, right? In a lot of settings, war and whatever else. It's awful stuff. So to imagine somebody inflicting these injuries, it says a lot about the person. I mean, you just don't see a lot of butchers walking around Moscow, Idaho. You see people that are impacted emotionally to the point where they commit these crimes. And that's the difference. So why? Because they knew where she was. And there was a trigger mechanism that inspired this rage. That's the answer.
I'm going to go and segue off this again. So civilized custom, off that point, Chris, how was Xana's death premeditated if he didn't anticipate running to her? And
it wasn't.
I think wasn't. Right. But now I think about the readings at the sentencing is I would guess what civilized custom is saying, where it says, committed with premeditated and malice forethought, right? And then, but Bill Thompson does say he might not have intended to kill all of them.
He did say that very specifically, and that speaks volumes. You know what I would say? Ask Bill Thompson these questions, and he answered them. He's already answered them for you. He said all of these things in the sentencing hearing. Look, I've got to say that who gives a shit? They probably all hate me by now. I don't care. I'm kind of a fan of Bill Thompson. I think Bill Thompson is a
really?
Yeah. He's a meat and potato. Look, I'm not saying he did things that I would consider right, but I look at this and say, with what he had to deal with, and trying to put this together, and the intense pressure that he suffered as a result of this, they found a person and they got this person to plead guilty. That's his job, right? He had an exemplary career other than that. But he answered those questions. He says in the plea hearing, he says these things. I'm not sure we like the answers, but
wow.
Xana's death was not premeditated. And the answer to the question is because Bryan Kohberger didn't have a chance. Bryan Kohberger did not have the latitude to change the terms of the plea. He couldn't say, well, I plead guilty to this, but I don't plead guilty to that. He just took the plea, and the plea said it was premeditated. Do you see my point? The statute for first-degree murder in the state of Idaho has to include premeditation. It's a death penalty case, right?
I see.
So the state of Idaho has to prove violation of a specific statute, and those statutes have specific wording, and each element, according to that specific wording, has to be proven in a court of law. So when he read that charge, it is the state statute, the law, and that's why he had to plead guilty. It doesn't mean he's agreeing it was premeditated. He's saying, I'm going to plead guilty, and that's the only option. Do you understand the difference?
Yes, I do understand that. Correct.
Okay, I just saw Jack and Dylan, and I got to go back to Uncle Daddy and say, I'm not implying that Jack and Dylan had anything going on. I am not in any way trying to insinuate, imply, suggest, or infer. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the complex relationships between people that age in a college setting was more than people know. And I say that that's true. I'm not saying those two. I'm saying the people involved in this story. In this story, yes, that's true.
Shauna Burrows said, do you think Eric Gower's story is a little fishy? Is there more to his story?
No, I personally don't believe there is more to the story. I've looked at all the circumstances, the GPS, the notes, the text message, and all the stuff. Things people said about his wife being out of town and he's got to get away from his child, whatever. He's a guy. He's an Uber driver. Everybody loved the guy. Everybody loved the guy. I mean, what would possibly could have happened that he would cause him to break into a house and rage kill two people that were his best clients? It doesn't make any sense. The poor guy's name came up. I think there's zero fishy about Eric Gower or anything he did. My opinion, just my opinion.
Anxiety Mosquito says, if they take out Xana because they just ran into her, why not take out Dylan too? It's a great question.
Exactly.
Wow. And, Hive, there are a lot of questions. Dunweiser said, what about the debris that was found in Ethan's hand? I know you talked about that on some other shows, so I didn't really bring that up because I feel like you probably said that now 2 or 3 times. You talk about it in the book. Ethan's hand had a clump of hair in it, and yes. I guess I'll leave it at that for you to answer the rest of it.
Well, Ethan, there's a long photographic record of the hair that was in the bed. It was in Ethan's hand when he was taken from the bed to the autopsy. They bagged the hands. I think we might have been over this before. They bagged the hands to protect the fingernails so that you can check for DNA and blood and things under the fingernails or any tissue on the hand. And when the bags were taken off, they examined the hand in this position, and he had hair that appears to match the hair from the bed in his hand. It was labeled as debris, and it was tested, but not tested for DNA. That's the debris.
Was this
his hair?
This was something too that I was curious. So was the 17-minute call to Jack by Kaylee or Kaylee to Jack?
Okay, this is the 25 pages that was cut out of my book.
Okay.
All I can say, guys, is I can't say anything except, wow. I better not say anything. The call is significant.
Okay. Now, Hive, I understand there may have been some other super chats. Chris, I've been holding Chris hostage. Seriously, I know you say you love it, but it's been 3 hours. You've had a lot of long interviews.
Wow.
So out of respect,
Well,
for
people
you,
are probably just sick of listening to me yap. I'm do you a
I'm
favor by
not.
getting out of here.
I'm not, but I just want to be respectful of your time. 3 hours is a very long interview, and you have been gracious for that, and you've answered every question that you could.
Okay, before you go, I didn't realize I had to pay $100 to get my SC question asked. Let's deal with that. You don't have to
Where
pay
is it?
$100.
Which
Let's
one
give
is
her-
it?
Let's give her a little love, or whoever that was. Do you
I
know
didn't
what
see
the
it.
question is?
I read a bunch that were like $1. I read them.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
read a lot of them. The ones that I did skip, and I'm just going to be fully transparent with you all. The ones that I did skip are what Chris has already said he probably can't answer based on their people's names, their opinions, right? Like, so which one was it that just said that? Do you know the name?
I'm sorry, I missed it. It was going too quickly.
And I'm doing my best, Hive. Trust me, I'm doing my best. You don't have to pay $100 by any means. Okay, here, Amanda Kessinger, while I'm looking for that one, says, is this tied to the 24 federal arrest of the Aryan prison gang per the official Department of Justice and DEA websites?
No.
No. Okay. So Kawanda, where's Kawanda?
Interesting question, Amanda. Interesting question, but no.
I'm scrolling Kawanda. I'm trying to find it. You guys know I'm not trying to skip anybody's on purpose. And
Chris, it was a door. What does that mean? It was a door. I think someone said, Chris, it was a door. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means either. Kawanda. Jeez. Okay. Britain is, I don't think I read this one, said Dylan and Bethany are liars. There's too many inconsistencies. Blue Eyed Candy said, doors open. I think you answered that with the thermostat. I don't see Kawanda.
Well, to address that really quickly, there's a lot of information that the front door was open also, right? There's that gentleman walking his dog, I don't need to name, walking his dog that said the front door of the house was open between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. And it was not when Hunter arrived. So there's another issue, the front door. Was it open? Why? When did it get closed? Who closed it? All of those issues. That's great question.
Chris, was there a fifth victim?
A fifth victim? Who would be the fifth victim?
Just there was initial reports that came out on the news that they'd said there was 4 deceased and 1 taken to a hospital.
Wow, I've never seen any indication. I can say this unequivocally. You can trace the 911 call from Bethany to dispatch. Oddly enough, this is weird, but dispatch was called Whitcomb 911. Did you ever see that? My last name's Whitcomb. And
I did actually say that yesterday. I go,
that's kind of weird. That's really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can, I do this in a book. You follow the Bethany's call to 911, and then she dispatches EMS and police to the scene. And you can put all of those together from the call, whatever else. That goes to Officer Nunez, who responds, turns on his body camera, picks up Jelly Roll playing My Enemy Is Me, and then walks out thinking it's a medical emergency. I think it would be impossible that somebody came out and went to the hospital because it's all recorded on video.
Thank you for answering that. I saw a couple of comments about that. I've been looking for Kawanda's question now for 3 minutes, and if I can't find it again, I apologize.
Kawanda, send it back again.
Yeah.
Could
You don't have to
send it again?
Oh, she said it right before I asked. Okay. Where is it? Jesus.
I don't know how you keep it. This is so fast.
It's
Somebody keeps asking about the 3 fights. I want to be clear. There were a lot of altercations because it was a Saturday night in a college town, right? None of them that I have seen, and I'm not saying the number was 3. There were several that were mentioned by various people. So-and-so would say so-and-so got in an altercation, and I think some of those have leaked out, and that's what you're talking about. None of those led to an indication that it involved Kaylee or Maddie or Xana, and that would somehow have contributed. It was a Saturday night in a college town. There were problems. Everything like at the corner club, right? There was this guy that got kicked out. I'm not going to say his name either, but there's all kinds of stuff like that. I wasn't saying there were 3 specific fights that could be involved in this case. That's not what I was saying. I was saying there's a lot of activity and a lot of it was recorded. Fair enough.
Kawanda asked, did the unredacted condition of Maddie Mogan's room match the severity of Kaylee and Maddie's injuries?
Okay. Did the unredacted condition of Maddie Mogan's room, you mean, did the unredacted photographs of Maddie Mogan's room match the severity? The photographs I've seen, pretty clear.
Yeah, because we can see.
I spent a week in the autopsy photos, right? I don't wish that on anybody. Yes, the photographs very clearly match the severity of the injuries. Yes, they do.
Okay.
But you haven't seen unredacted photos. You've only seen redacted photos, right? The public?
As far as the victims?
Yeah, of the bedrooms?
Yeah.
I think they were all redacted.
So I have a question about redactions. I had shown this to start the stream, right? What's behind this black box here, if you're able to say? Why do they
Blood stains.
Oh, it's blood stains.
It's just blood. There's nothing else there.
Okay. Can you confirm that there is 100% no way of extracting data from Kohberger's cell phone to prove he was in Wawewa, whatever it is? I can never say it. Wawewa Park that night.
Well, I think I understand the nature of this question, but I'll say I have all the data from Kohberger's phone, the one that he had in Washington, the AT&T cell phone. I have that dump, and I don't think there's anything that would need to be extracted that wasn't. Nothing I saw in any way indicates that he tried to cover information in his phone. Nothing. So I don't know of any extracting data that they don't already have. They have a lot of data.
Why was Dylan spared?
No clue.
Why is Kaylee's...
Nothing I'm going to talk about.
Okay. Why is Kaylee's death certificate different? Now, I can explain this because I've actually shown this on stream. It was a screen grab that circulated on multiple different platforms, Reddit, whatever, and it showed like December 10th.
I can tell you nothing about that because I haven't seen it. It was not in the investigative file. That must have been divulged someplace else, but that death certificate was not part of the investigative file that I've ever seen.
Okay. Can Jack Decor's phone be heard on the 1112 camera ringing?
Not that I've heard. I mean, my ears did not hear it, no.
A lot of questions surrounding drugs, right? A lot of rumors.
Yes.
As I'm sure you've heard in the body cam of Snyder and House and Gunderson, a lot of people said that they heard rumors of cocaine or fentanyl and ODing. Anything with dealing or overdosing?
I don't. The only reason I think this ever happened is because one of the victim's mothers, and you all know who I'm talking about, I think, one of the victim's mothers had issues with substance abuse and was in jail various times. And her ex-husband made an allegation that her drug activity could somehow be related to the cartels and said that in public, not just to the police, but said that in public. So that somehow led to conversations about drug activity. I've seen nothing but some very basic recreational drug use, like Adderall, some things like that, in anything. I've never seen anything. Police never found, and they did investigate. Nothing I've ever seen shows any indication of drug dealing by any of the people in the house.
Have you seen anything about, I'm even hesitant to ask this question, but I've seen it. It's been talked about. I'll say it. I'm only hesitant because I probably already know the answer you're going to give me, but have you come across rumors of a relationship between someone in the house and a police officer?
I just saw that. Many people have asked me that. I don't know where that started. I know it is it is a conversation, but it has been explained to me. This has nothing to do with the police file. This has to do with my sources that helped me with this book. And I asked them that question. And the idea was, this started with a suggestion, and I've got to be very clear. This is on recording, right? We're recording this right now, right? Nothing in the file in any way indicates this. But there is a rumor, there's a conversation right now going on around a lot of people that police had informants in the fraternities to do what informants do, to give you an idea of who's dealing drugs, who's doing whatever else. I don't know if, I don't have a comment on that. But the thinking was that because of that, one of those relationships led to one of the women in the house. I've never seen anything that indicates that's true, but that's where it started. I think it started with speculation that somehow became part of the narrative. It's not part of any verified narrative that I've seen anywhere. It's not realistic in a way that I have ever seen mentioned.
What was the writing on Dylan's arm that looked like it had said Gideon was here in the body cam footage?
I know what you're talking about. I don't think I ever really paid any attention to it, to be honest with you. I mean, I could look, but I don't remember that being an issue.
Was anybody bound and gagged? Before you answer that too, I want to add on a part of this. Why would Steve G in the you can read this in the transcripts with Judge Hippler say, and this is Kaylee's father saying, I hate using the word gag order because some of the victims were gagged.
The answer is I don't know. I don't know why he would say that. I don't know why that would be an issue, except the only thing I would say is lots of the family members never got any information about anything. To this day, they didn't even know about the plea agreement, right? So many people, many family members have expressed dismay at the way they were treated during the course of this investigation. But that is their opinion. Those are their comments. I have no clue. I have no idea. But I can say, based on crime scene photos, autopsy results, and all of the written reports, I've never seen a single thing anywhere that indicates in any manner, way, shape, form, or anything else that anybody was gagged at any time.
Do you know when Ethan and Xana got home?
Nobody does.
Okay.
I know that nobody can say when they actually got home.
Nobody can say when they
Not
actually got
specifically.
home. Okay.
No, I mean, we know when Dylan and Bethany and Lakeland and everybody, there's photographs, there's time hacks, there's all kinds of evidence of when people got home. The DoorDash establishes Xana at the house at 4 a.m., but it's a big mystery. It's a big mystery where exactly Xana and Dylan and Ethan were at various times during the night. I mean, we know where they were. Police know where they were at various times, but there is a lot of unsolved. There are a lot of holes in specifics, and nobody has established that I've seen precisely when they got back to the house. Right? Dylan has said. Dylan is the only really source of information because Bethany was in bed. And Dylan has said in all of her interviews that I've heard, has said that she didn't know when they got home.
Did they die around 2 or 4? Thank you, anxiety mosquitoes.
4.
Unequivocally.
And listen, I can say that with certainty. The blood cast on the second floor was liquid at 4:17 a.m. And if anybody had died at 2 o'clock in the morning, the blood cast at 4:17 would not have been liquid.
Okay. And Hive, this is going to be the last super chat that I read. Thank you to everybody who did send that in. Seriously, you guys are incredible for that. Mary 2800 JMO said, "How come Kaylee didn't have defensive wounds?"
Another brilliant question. Let me answer. Let me think about it because I don't know that that's accurate. To be honest with you,
Actually,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that she didn't have any defensive wounds. She had so many wounds. Wow, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if she did or did not have defensive wounds and why she would or would not have had them. I don't know.
Okay, this is seriously last question because I am curious about this one. Was anybody pregnant?
Okay, how did I know the blood was liquid at 4? Because there was blood cast at 4:17, around 4:17, when Xana was encountered on the second floor when she was chased. All the blood on the common areas of the second floor that ended up on the walls, the beer pong table, the molding at the floor, all of that blood was cast, meaning that it had to be liquid. So whoever tracked Maddie and Kaylee's blood to the common areas of the second floor at around 4:17 when Xana was killed, it had to be liquid at that time.
I see
Does
what
that
you're
make
saying.
sense?
Yeah, the progression from Xana and Ethan and the thud and what could be Xana screaming.
If anybody had attacked them at 2, it would have dried long before that. So the physical evidence is the blood was cast liquid when it hit the walls. It had to be liquid proximal to the crimes on the third floor. Otherwise, it wouldn't be time proximal. Otherwise, it wouldn't, or temporary proximal. It would not have been liquid.
I've seen this be asked now a bunch. Was anybody pregnant in that house?
No.
Okay. Hive and Chris, with that, we're going to wrap up for the night. Please, please, please hit that like button, hit subscribe. Chris, I asked you so many questions. I feel bad asking you one more, but is there anything at all that you could, maybe break right now that you have yet to say after making your rounds?
Well, I think 90% of what we talked about, I didn't talk about in other shows. I mean, Birdie, cheers, man. I mean, you did a great job of keeping it fresh.
Thank you.
You really, really did. No,
Thank you.
Seriously. I think maybe at this point I'm too tired to start another avenue of discussion. But yeah, there is. I mean, there's lots and lots of stuff. But I would say if you picked up this book right now and you thumb through it, you could pick 15 things out that we haven't talked about. We have barely even touched on the book. I mean, we're talking about the case. We're talking about elements of it. So yeah, there are lots of things. I just, it's kind of late to get into it.
Hey, I understand completely, Chris, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for taking the time to pop into the Hive and talk about your new book, Broken Plea. People can obviously get it at Barnes and Noble. They can get it on Amazon. I had seen if somebody said, "Can we get the book early?"
I think somebody just said, "Ain't no way I'm going to get the book" or something. I go, okay.
Here, show this. Type a 1 if you're going to buy the book, if you're going to read it.
No, I don't care if you don't buy the book. Look, I got to be honest with people. I did this for me. I did this book for me.
Okay, I can respect
I'm not
that.
going to get a dime if you buy the book. I've already gotten paid to write the book, okay? And what that says Books A Million has it now. That's not supposed to happen. They're not supposed to have it till Tuesday. But guys, listen, I did this book for me. I could write books about anything, and I get paid up front. So look, why do I care? Why am I trying to argue with somebody about whether or not they're going to buy my book? I don't give a shit. Come on, man. I just spent 9 hours talking about it.
You know what? I appreciate the full transparency as much as you could throughout all of these questions. Hive, you guys, thank you so much for the super chats. Thank you for the questions, for the engagement. Seriously. This has been one of the best streams that we've ever had. And Chris, you are welcome back anytime. I'm still dead serious about that offer. If you want to start that up, hit me up. I would love to.
I'm sure we're going to talk about it. I'm sure we're going to talk about it, Bertie.
And with that, Hive, I hope everybody sleeps good. I will be back on debriefing tonight's stream tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central. And Chris, I hope you have a fantastic evening. Great job. And thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Cheers, everybody.
Very much. All of you. Thank you.
See you, Chris. Bye-bye.